13th meeting of the San Juan CC City Council to order, and with everybody rise to the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Thank you. Roll call, and I see Robert just pulled up.
Councilmember Love?
Here.
Councilmember Trujillo?
Here.
Councilmember Edge?
Here.
Vice Mayor Moore?
Here.
Mayor Bosch?
Here.
You have your quorum.
Okay. Public comments for items not on the agenda. Limited to 3 minutes. Do we have any speaker cards?
I have no speaker cards.
Okay. Moving on. Presentations, informational items, and reports. First item is the new courthouse update from Judge Saunders.
Yeah, good evening. How are y'all doing?
Good.
Good. I want to thank you all for allowing me a few minutes to talk about the kind of state of the judiciary. I want to talk about our courthouse building, a little bit about the budget, so they kind of dovetail. Let me start with the budget, and then I can move on to the building. As you know, for the last few years, the state of California has been kind of in a bad economic situation, and of course our government, state and local, have been suffering as well. There have been extensive cutbacks at state government level, which I represent as part of the Superior Court here, and of course locally. Here, statewide, from the judicial branch, we have suffered severe economic deficiencies. The state legislature has made ongoing annual reductions to the judicial branch as a whole of roughly $260 million. Last year, that $260 million was alleviated a little bit by a reinvestment in the judicial branch of $60 million. So we're still suffering as a whole, the judicial branch statewide, roughly $200 million. Locally, we've shared in those reductions for the last 4 or 5 years. Our annual allocation has been reduced. And so we expected this, because we of course haven't had our heads stuck in the sand. We've known what the economic situation's been like for many years. We've taken steps for many years to cut back and save kind of for the rainy day, and we were able to put a fairly sizable reserves into play because of our judicious, pardon the pun, use of our revenue and allocations. As you may know, last year to balance the budget, the state legislature basically swept the judicial branch reserves. They allowed us basically an offset. They reduced our allocation by an amount equal to roughly 1/2 of our reserves. They took $1.4 million from us locally, monies that had been earmarked over the years that we had saved for the benefit of our constituents here, your constituents. And the balance of our reserves are to be swept at the end of the year. Those that we don't expend, and we're able to expend any of the reserves, less any amount, we're able to keep 1%. There's a limitation cap placed on the courts of 1%, which is, in our case, is roughly $30,000 given our budget. So it's a very small amount of reserves. We're hoping that the state legislature will be able to expand that cap, but so that's where we're at right now. We're limited to a 1% reserves, and everything that we don't spend down to that amount will be taken through the allocation process, a reduction in our allocation. Now, in addition to those issues as to the reserves, or savings, if you will, we have had our annual reductions reduced, as I said, for the last 4 or 5 years. We're looking for probably an annual reduction of several $100,000. We don't yet have that number yet because we have to make our request. Our budget process is kind of a 2-step process. The state legislature appropriates money for the judicial branch as a whole, and then once that amount is given to the judicial branch as a separate independent branch, then that money goes through its own little internal process, and each of the 58 Superior Courts have to basically seek an allocation through that amount of money. So that's kind of where we're at. We basically, our savings that we had for the rainy day is no longer there, unfortunately, but the state of California has benefited from that, and that's not a bad thing. Unfortunately, our local citizens have suffered as a result of that. We're still here. We're going to operate. We haven't suffered any major service reductions as of yet. We have looked at all options to deal with the several $100,000 that we expect to lose again this year, including service interruptions. We have already had substantial cutbacks in our people, our labor force, but we still maintain the same level of service roughly that we have. That's no easy task, and I've got to give a lot of credit to our court administrative officer who's here, Gil Solario, for this and for the building, which I'll turn to shortly, because we've been really lucky. We're the 7th. Recently, we determined to be the 7th busiest court in the state based on the number of filings per judge. We've always been in the top 10% since I've been at the court, as far as I know, and so we're a very busy court, and so we've been real lucky. We don't have a lot of frills, though, so as you probably know here locally. So that's where we're at. Any questions as to the budget that I could answer? It's a common theme, right? Yeah.
Is any part of your budget generated by the county, or is it totally between you and the state?
Totally the state, basically. There have been some adjustments. We have some relationships still with the county, but basically we're the state agency. We're the equivalent of the state representatives, if you will, for the judiciary, as some of the member Alejo and Senator Cannell. So we basically are funded through the state. Now they're responsible, the local agency are responsible. We have Deputy Brown, who's occasionally bailiff in my court, and he also bailiffs. The sheriff's responsible for bailiffing. Those monies come from the state to the county, and then the sheriff is obligated by law to bailiff the court. So there's some connection, but our general operating budget comes from the state.
Okay.
Good.
Anybody else?
All right. Now, dire times, harsh times, but 10 years ago we saw a need in that we had an inadequate facility in our courthouse, and we saw a need that needed to be addressed. I started about 10 to 12 years ago, and my colleague, Judge Tobias, has expended tremendous amounts of effort to get a facility. A few years ago, the state took over all the courthouses, and when they did, they surveyed all of the buildings they acquired, because it used to be that the county was required to pay for our house, the courthouse, and they changed that law about 10 or so years ago, and the state decided they'd take on the responsibility through the judicial branch. When they did, they wanted to see what they were getting. They surveyed all the courthouses. And they estimated roughly 220 some odd courthouses to be inadequate that they were taking over from the counties. And we were like number 8, roughly. 8 worst courthouse in the state of 224 worst courthouses. And we kind of celebrated because we knew that was going to mean that we could hopefully move up on the list of the state actually acknowledged the needs we had here locally. And so we began to push. And about that time, Gil joined us, and thank goodness he did, because we really need to thank him for his efforts. I want to point out that he's tirelessly worked on the courthouse, and he's dealt with so many different issues along the way, and so we wouldn't be having that structure where it's at now. Where it's at now, has anybody been by lately? Looking, it's coming along pretty quickly. We anticipate it will be completed at the end in the fall. We slipped a little bit, about a month or so. We think the end of October, as opposed to the end of September earlier. We had a little delays on our glass subcontractor, some other things, but we anticipate that it will be functionally occupiable at the end of October. Then they'll move the furniture in, some computer systems tested, kind of run it through. We hope that we'll have our first proceedings held in the new courthouse roughly at the end of this year or at the beginning of January. So, and I've got some pictures depicting it. I'll pass them around, and I can show. They're a little small. I guess very much. see it. This is a picture of the front of the structure. It's kind of interesting because you'll see that that structure has a overhang. It's a glass overhang. It's got frit in it. I learned a lot of things in this whole construction process, and I learned about fritted glass. I'm sure Roger knows all about that, but I had no clue. It basically allows a certain amount of sun to penetrate through and restricts the amount of sun that comes through. It's a passive solar design. The overhang is designed so that it will restrict the summer sun from striking the front of the building, reducing the cooling demands, and allow the sun of the winter to come in, penetrate it with the glass there, warming up the facility so as to allow for reduced heating needs. It's roughly a 41,500 foot facility. It has 3 regular courtrooms and a hearing room / jury assembly room. That hearing room / jury assembly room can be converted in the future when we would need a 4th building or 4th courtroom facility should our judicial resources increase. And we have an area out in front. Here's a large, I can show everybody a little bit back here. If you see right to the right here, members of the audience, and I'll show you, this is just one, there would be a place where we could build a jury assembly room and construct that. This is the area I'm referring to here, right off to the right of the entrance. This entrance is kind of jutting out a little bit. And this would be where the expansion for a jury assembly room, allowing us a full 4 courtrooms. And I can set this up here. If you want to take a look at it. I can pass it around too, but it's kind of big. Oh, perfect. This is a picture of the site, just to give you a little background too. It's the old Hollister school site where my kids went to school, both of them, and they all graduated from there. So it's quite a historical site for us. Not only that, but it's Colonel Hollister. I suppose that's more than my kids graduating there. It's more important historically. And there has been a lot of things on site that are very, very historical. We're proud to be a part of that site now. I need to thank you again. Your participation, one of the reasons I wanted to come over and kind of update you is because you have been an integral part of this process. You're one of our justice partners. You have served as one of our advisory group. One of your members, Priscilla Hill, former council person, had a lot of input as one of the members of the advisory committee. We went through a lot of design issues, and the design you see here is part of your work through your representative on our advisory committee. So I want to thank you. It's going to be a secure structure. There will be modern security now. There will be a single entry screened entrance so that no weapons get in. A few years ago, I was in the middle of a hearing, and it was a discussion about somebody was beating somebody with a little bat, and the person who was getting beat was slashing up the person with a knife. And so the questions came up from, I forget if it was from the defense or the DA about the type of knife, and he goes, "Oh, it's right here." And he pulls it out, and I kind of was a little excited about that he got through the security, because there was no security at that time. So hopefully that kind of thing won't happen anymore. We do screen now minimally, but this will be a full screened facility so that the public will be protected in the courts. We haven't had a problem, but you know how it is today. The world is a little different than when the courthouse that I'm currently housed in was constructed, which was in the early 60s. It's a 50-plus-year-old facility. Let's see. Any questions I can answer about the structure or the timeline?
Yeah, are the county offices going to move into this, or
no,
you're going to stay where they're at?
It's a single-use facility. That's a great question, because when the state took over all of the courthouses in the state, there were a myriad of arrangements throughout the state. Here locally, we actually have a mixed-use facility. We have the county buildings mixed in with the state courts. The state, at the time they took over, found that to be a problem, and when they were undergoing their construction projects, that once they began taking over courthouse construction, they really expressed a preference that they didn't want any non-state agency in there, and they didn't want any more county mixed use kind of situation. So they wouldn't even like the idea we were trying to get the law library over there, but that's a county agency. We asked about it, and they said, no, that has to be housed by the county, and we were not going to pay for it, one, and we don't think it's a good idea because of some of the problems they encountered, mostly elsewhere. So the answer to your question is no. No, the assessor, county clerk, and everybody there staying there unless the county moves them. The space that we vacate, county is looking at what they want to put in there, and so they're going to do whatever they want to do with the facility once the state courts move.
I know we were discussing moving COG into there if it works. But will the county own it or the state?
The county owns it and always have.
Oh.
Well, county kind of owns it. They actually mortgaged it off to raise some money for something else. The last I heard, I don't know if they have paid off that mortgage, but they actually had certificates of participation the last time I knew much about the county operations intimately. But in essence, they will own it again. They did own it, and they did mortgage it off for some county buildings. But yeah, good questions.
Anybody else have questions? No?
Anything else?
I don't see any other questions, Judge.
I appreciate your
Appreciate
time.
you coming.
And I appreciate all your help. And again, I want to come here periodically. If there's anything else that you have questions about, I'd be happy to answer them on court operations anytime. Just give me a call. We're justice partners, and there's a lot of exciting things going on in the state right now with the courts. A Criminal Justice Realignment Act. I just started the process where all parole violations are now coming to me in our courts, and so we've had three or four new criminal violations that are handled now locally that used to be handled elsewhere or didn't exist. So it's exciting times. All our parole violations now will be brought to Superior Court and not have by the Board of Parole. So that's an interesting thing. Yes.
Steve, I'd like to commend you and Gil and Judge Tobias for carrying the torch and bringing us this facility. It's been very nice. And your effort to be very frugal with building up your reserves. Unfortunately, the state takes it away.
Yeah. I was telling Gil I like to use.
But I compliment you for that.
Yeah, it's kind of like this. If you go to your, if you got a job, you're making $1,000 a month, and your boss says, because he's the source of your income, says, I'm going to have to cut you back. Times are tough, right? So you can expect a reduction in your salary soon. Maybe 800, maybe 600. I don't quite know what it's going to be. So what do? If you're frugal, right, and you're prudent, you put all your money in the bank. You start turning off cable TV. You do things like that. That's what we did. And so we saved the money. And then all of a sudden the boss says, okay, we're cutting you back. You're no longer getting $1,000. You're going to get $600. And by the way, how much are you saving in that bank account of yours for the rainy day? Well, I've been saving really hard, Mr. Boss. How much you have? Well, I got $20,000. Well, I'm taking it all. That's what happens in the courts, in a simple analogy. But then again, you got to say the boss had some hurting times, and so the boss needed the money. The boss is the state legislature and the governor, and so we're following. We're doing our best we can from the judicial side. Anything else, folks?
How many state building or state facilities will be in there? Will there be anything else that?
Just the courts.
Just the courts.
Just the courts. 4 courtrooms. The bottom, the orientation will be the bottom. We're actually able to save a little money because we rent a separate facility. Those of you who are familiar with across the street from the courthouse, we actually rent the old Coughlin-Paxton law office there. That houses our family services for people who are getting divorces and things like that. We also have our self-help for people who are trying to represent themselves without assistance of attorneys over there. That will move into the new facility, so we won't have to rent that facility anymore. That will be in the bottom easterly corner. All of the clerks, which are now spread out in, we've got 3 locations of clerks now. We've got the upstairs, which is civil. We've got downstairs, which is criminal. And then we have another adjunct area downstairs where is criminal too. And they're all going to be together, so we'll be able to reap the benefits of having everybody together in one facility. Upstairs, where all the courtrooms will be, and the administrative offices. It'll be just the courts. And it should be a facility that will last, I expect it to last through the 21st century, frankly, with potential for expansion. Reason is it will have to last through the 21st century because I don't think finances in the state of California are going to get much better for the next foreseeable time. And it's very difficult to fund these major projects. It's been very difficult for government at all levels to deal with that. We were really lucky. We just came about that close to being shut off before we went out to bid. We actually canceled our bid one time, and because they wouldn't sell bonds because of the poor bond market. So, you know, expect this facility will have to last our community for, you know, 80 years, and so hopefully it will serve that. Yes.
Because you called it a state court and all the state work will go on there,
Yes.
will there be any courthouse activities taking place in the old building at all? Any
No,
Okay, so as
we're
long
being
as-
kicked out. Part of the
Okay,
agreement
as long
between
as
the
it's
state and the
courts,
county,
it's going.
we're kicked out. As soon as our new facility, they said bye-bye courts, the county did, and so we have to leave. And
So nothing will be going on.
nothing on there.
Except normal county activity.
Yeah, I expect that there may be some expansion of some of the facilities, like, for example, I think it would be the voting aspect of the county clerk's operation might expand. But again, I'm just, you know, guessing. I'm kind of hypothesizing and speculating. But the county will make its decision. But we will not be conducting any facility. With the exception of, we might occasionally, if we needed to, although I can't see it happening too often. Right now, we have an arrangement where we can use the board chambers once in a while if we have to have a proceeding and we're filled up. We do fill up. I have operated with at least 5 judges at times where we've had visiting judges coming in, myself and Judge Tobias handling various calendars, and we have overflowed and used the chambers occasionally. So perhaps, but it's hopefully going to be less of a need with our new facility.
Yeah, it just seems like efficiency-wise, as far as energy use and all that sort of thing, it's actually a
Yeah.
little less efficient
Yes.
to have 2 separate buildings.
Yeah, exactly. We're bringing everything together. We do have, everything now will be in one location, whereas now we have 3 actual sites. The third site, which we haven't talked about, is our we have a little courtroom in the juvenile hall. And it's about, let's say, from here to the back wall, roughly, about the square, the size of that portion of your room. And we hold our juvenile proceedings once a week out there for delinquencies. So we go travel out there for the kids that are in juvenile hall have proceedings out there. Now, for any of the new cases that arise for juvenile delinquency, they bring them down to the courthouse. But for Monday morning, our judge who handles delinquency cases goes out there. So we'll still have that facility as well. But that's just one little tiny.
Good. Well, again, Judge, thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Thank you for your
Appreciate
time.
presentation.
And have a great evening, folks. I appreciate it again. Thanks for allowing us to do this.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay. Now, next item is legislative update from Assembly Member Luis Alejo.
Got it. Thank you. It's good to follow the presiding judge because I just came not too long ago, earlier today, for a groundbreaking for a new family law courthouse in San Jose. I used to represent part of the city of San Jose, and I was just with the Chief Justice of the California Supreme Court that serves as the presiding judge over all the courts over California. So we were just talking about the progress on the Hollister Courthouse, and it's really a great accomplishment because the courthouse got through just in the nick of time because that's when a lot of other projects statewide were being held up. The San Jose Courthouse was one of those other courthouses that just got through by a miracle, I would say, because of the major cuts that were being done to the court. But I'm sensitive to what the presiding judge just presented because I would agree there has been some devastating cuts, not only to the courts, but certainly courts have taken a big hit over the last few years. But prior to coming to the State Assembly, I worked as a staff attorney at the Monterey County Superior Court. So I've been a big vocal or voice for making sure that as the economy recovers, that we restore money to the courts. Because to me, as a lawyer that represents access to justice, it's the way that Americans, citizens all across our state and our nation could have access to having their legal disputes resolved, hopefully in a timely manner, but also sometimes there are cases that are very personal when it comes to decisions about your relationships or your children or domestic violence. I mean, those are all very critical issues that sometimes our citizens need a quick turnaround, a quick decision by a judge, somebody who's an expert in law. So for me, I've always been a great champion. And when we had hearings over the last few months about the court budget, because I served previously on the budget subcommittee that oversees the budgets for the courts, for the prisons, and for public safety, I often reminded my colleagues that the judicial branch isn't another department or another agency of state government. It's a co-equal branch of government, and it should get the respect and the needed budget it deserves. But the other part that wasn't mentioned earlier was that it was controversial because some of the decisions not made at the local level, not the trial court level, but at the administrative level, the administrative office of the courts got into some controversy because it became too top-heavy. They mismanaged a court case management system that almost costing the state $1 billion when it was originally estimated to cost $200 million. So that's where some of the controversies happened in Sacramento. But nonetheless, that got corrected. I was part of the audit committee that oversaw those changes that were happening. I worked closely with the Chief Justice. But now it's good that as the economy recovers, that we look at how can we restore money to the courts so that they could continue doing the critical services that they did. And when I worked for the court, I was a self-help center attorney. So my job was to assist all those self-represented litigants that were coming to court that couldn't afford a private attorney in family and civil law. So thank you for that update, presiding judge, because that doesn't always happen. There's not too many presiding judges that come to the local city councils and just give an update what's happening with the state of the judiciary.
And if I could interrupt just briefly, we have a very lucky that we have Assemblymember Lego here. He's always there. If I need to call him, he's there. He's a good advocate for the courts, and so I really want to thank him for that and for all his efforts in getting our courthouse, because that, again, would not be available without his help. So thank you.
Thank you, Judge. But I'm coming back before you just to give a brief legislative presentation to the council and to the staff and certainly to the citizens of San Juan Bautista. This is the smallest city in my district. I got 9 cities, parts of 4 counties, so it's a very large geographic area. But San Juan Bautista is always a special place. It will always have a special place in my heart. My wife and I just got married last December 8th here right across the street. Bishop Richard Garcia did a beautiful ceremony. So when I come to San Juan Bautista, it will always be a special place to me. And we had a reception later that day just down the street in Hollister. So we chose San Juan Bautista for a special part of our lives. I just wanted to give a report on my committee changes. This year, the Speaker chose me to serve as the chair of the Assembly Environmental Safety and Toxic Materials Committee, having to do with a wide range of legal issues, environmental, air quality issues, including ensuring that every Californian has access to safe drinking water, but also it means sometimes taking on the controversial issues that has been a discussion here in San Benito County as of late regarding what's going to happen regarding rules on fracking and the safety, what safety protections are we doing for citizens and the environment and for groundwater as that debate continues. So that's been one of my big priorities this year as new chair. But I also serve on the Assembly Labor Committee, the Assembly Judiciary Committee, and also the Local Government Committee. And in my first 2 years in office, I served as the vice chair of the Assembly Local Government Committee. So it's a very exciting time for me. I'm here with my staff, Brandy Garcia, who's here in the corner, a native daughter of Gilroy, but she covers San Benito County and South Santa Clara County for me, and she has office hours here every Tuesday here at the Gavilan College building. For what hours? 10 to 5. You could always find her there and set up an appointment or set up a time to meet with me here in San Benito County as well. My district changed a little bit since last November. The new part, I already covered all of San Benito County. I covered Gilroy and San Martin, Watsonville, and South Santa Cruz County, and most of Monterey County, Salinas Valley. Salinas down to King City, Fort Horn to Liggett. With redistricting, I picked up the city of Morgan Hill, and I lost the part of South San Jose Evergreen, and I picked up all the Big Sur coastline from Carmel Highlands all the way to down to San Luis Obispo County line. That beautiful, pristine coastline is now part of the 30th Assembly District. So it's a big area to cover, and that's why my days, I'm probably I do stops in every, at least one stop in every county, just like I did earlier today. But I did want to just come and give a report because this year is much different than the previous 2 times I came before you. As you know, every time I came, I said the toughest part of my job is, as a member, previous member of the Assembly Budget Committee, was having to make a lot of tough decisions. It was the worst part of my job because we had to make some tough cuts because the state constitution requires that the state budget be balanced. It cannot spend more than what what is coming in. And so we had to make some devastating cuts in all areas. For not only the courts, but it was child care, it was K-12 education, it was in-home support services, it was Elder Day, it was higher education. This year, for the first time in the last several years, is where we actually have a balanced budget in California, not having to make devastating cuts. The state controller this month said the projections were even greater than what was originally expected, $2 billion over what was originally expected. So we're in a position where we can present to the voters of California, because they entrusted in us, approving a temporary tax measure under Proposition 30. It allowed us to keep a balanced budget, but at the same time, the governor and many of us in the legislature reminded ourselves that we have to stay fiscally disciplined, that we got to keep any extra that we got to use it to pay down debt. We got to create a rainy day fund, which we're doing for the first time in many years this year. But also the extra that we do have, really prioritize it in areas that are critically important for our families. So the governor and the legislature did that this year in our budget by making sure we're restoring some money through K-12 education, investing in higher education so that our young leaders could get good careers and be the future leaders of our country. And then third is also making sure that we're expanding health care as part of the Affordable Care Act nationally, to making sure that more than 1 million more Californians have access to health insurance. So these are all big policy decisions, a lot of discussions, a lot of hearings on these things, but for the first time, at least we could come back and give you that important report. As part of the higher education portion, for a lot of kids that have, families that have children, the legislature passed what is called the middle class scholarship, which means that any family that makes $100,000 or less, if you got kids going to college, they can qualify for a scholarship that reduces college tuition at the California State University system or the University of California by 40%. So it's a significant drop. It makes college affordable again because they're at an all-time high. It's making it much harder for parents in our district here in San Juan Bautista, and it was resulting in many young people ending up with huge debt after finishing college. We made that a priority this year and was able to invest a significant amount to reduce the college tuition rate at our state university systems. But I'm also here to report just real briefly on some other bills that I'm carrying. One of those has to do with Hazel Hawkins Hospital. I had talked to the director several months ago, Ken Underwood, about the impact of the medical cuts that the legislature did 2-3 years ago. What it was equating to this year was that it was going to result in almost a 25% cut for Hazel Hawkins skilled nursing facility. That's the maybe south and maybe north centers that care for our most elderly here in San Benito County. These are important because if you have an elderly parent that needs specialized medical care, you can't be there all the time because you're working during the day. Hazel Hawkins took over this center to ensure that these services would continue here in San Benito County. It allows families to be able to go to work, but it needs to interact regularly with their parents, grandparents, and these services are important for all those residents who utilize those services there. But without restoring this medical cuts, those centers at Hazel Hawkins Hospital are at risk of shutting down in the next few years. There's only 58 of these skilled nursing facilities left in California. A third of them are already shut down because it's very tough financially to run these services because they're very expensive. And so I carried a bill, AB 900, to restore that 10% medical cut specifically for Hazel Hawkins. But it's a bill that's supported not only by labor, but by the California Hospital Association, the California Medical Association, all the doctors across California. And there was about 3 bills similarly trying to restore the 10% cuts. Mine is the only bill that is still continuing. It's in the Senate Appropriations Committee, and when we return on August 5th, we'll be taking a vote on it. But that's an important health care bill for your local hospital here in San Benito County, and for, I think, almost 200 residents, 200 seniors that utilize those services there. And I just did a second tour of the hospital just a few days ago, just to come and meet some of the residents and the employees who work there. Very important services that we have for San Benito County residents. Just on 2 other points, I came to you because when I first ran, the main thing was how do you create tools to attract jobs to places like San Benito County. And we worked very closely to reform a program that existed. There was none existed in San Benito County. I had one in Salinas and one in Watsonville was called the Enterprise Zone Program. It was really intended for communities like San Benito County that have had historically a hard time attracting companies to come and invest in these rural or these economically disadvantaged areas. It wasn't really working very well because most of that money, most of those tax credits were going to San Francisco, San Jose, San Diego, and Los Angeles, about 70%. It was, all the rural areas only get about 30%. So even though I was a big supporter because it was beneficial to my district, I was open to reforming it to see how we could have a greater impact. With the new program that we approved just about 2 weeks ago, there's 3 parts. And now it will have a greater impact for San Benito County because you guys did not have an enterprise zone. So now it's 3 parts. The governor wanted to create a manufacturing tax credit. So any companies now in San Benito County that do manufacturing, when they buy machinery, they can now qualify for a tax credit. And so there's a list that the governor's GoBiz office gave me. A lot of different companies that are doing manufacturing or food processing here in San Benito can now qualify for that tax credit. It didn't exist before. So that's going to help them stay here in San Benito County, and perhaps others could come and invest here and benefit from that. The second program is a competitive tax credit. So because there's companies that are looking to expand in California, or they're coming from out of state and looking to see what does the state have to offer to have that company come from out of state and move into California. There was no other program that existed. So the governor wanted to have a competitive tax credit that if a company went to GoBiz and said, I'm looking to expand, I could expand here or I could go elsewhere, what do you have to offer me? Well, now we have an additional tax credit that could help those companies invest in California workers and California communities. So in the future, for San Juan Bautista or Hollister or the county supervisors, if a company is looking to expand, we can now get in touch with the governor's office to see how we could have for that additional incentive to have those companies expand or grow here in San Benito County. The last part was a reform of the existing program, which will still continue in Salinas and in Watsonville. It was a more refined hiring credit for companies that hire workers with employment barriers. So veterans coming back from war, if you hire that veteran, then you get a tax credit for hiring them. If you take a chance on somebody trying to change their life around, they came out of prison or jail, and you take a chance by hiring them, then you get a tax credit for that. Or people who live in economically disadvantaged neighborhoods as well. So we're going to give that a try. We're going to see how it works. But I just saw it as a net gain for San Benito County because it did not have an enterprise zone, and now there's some additional incentives for businesses here in San Benito County. So with that said, I think that's all I wanted to mention. If you have any questions for me, but like I said, it's really an honor. This is my 3rd year in the State Assembly. After this year will be my halfway mark because I'm under the old term limit rules, which only allowed me to serve 6 years in Sacramento. But I really take my job seriously. I love what I do. I love representing the people of San Benito County. And certainly I always try to remain accessible. I come here, San Juan Bautista, frequently. I was here just for the mission celebration just a few days ago. I was here for the Indian Craft Fair about, I think, last month. But I really try to get out there and make myself accessible, always setting up meetings with local officials or residents in my Hollister office. I got a satellite office in Watsonville. My main office is in Salinas. But I just want to thank all of you for the work you do. And like I said, I always feel that if I'm going to do a good job, I got to come to you, not expect you to come to me to see how I could complement the work that you're doing here locally, and certainly tap into your expertise and hear your ideas and get your input. We return on August 5th. The session will go to August 14th, and then that's the end of the legislative session. Then the governor has about a month to decide what bills he's going to sign into law. And so it's a good time to come to you because we'll have that last 5 weeks of session. And I forgot to mention one other bill that I'm carrying. It's a big bill for the California League of Cities. As you know, I know San Juan Bautista did not have redevelopment, but it was an important tool for many other cities across the state. I was one of the few Democrats that did not vote to eliminate redevelopment because it was an important tool for economic development and affordable housing for many cities. But I am authoring one of the main bills by the, sponsored or supported by the California League of Cities. That is AB 1080. It's trying to create a new tool for communities that are economically disadvantaged so they could use their local tax increment to invest in infrastructure, creating buildings. If you have contaminated lots that need to be cleaned up and be put to good public use, if part of that money could also be used for affordable housing, it's going to be a new tool that communities could use in the post-redevelopment area. So even though you didn't have redevelopment in the future, if it ends up being a tool that will work for San Juan Bautista and San Benito County, then it would be available. But it's the one that most resembles what redevelopment used to be. There's about another 5 or 6 bills from different other authors. I always try to say my bill is trying to create one of many tools for economic development and affordable housing and brownfield cleanup for cities across the state. They shouldn't only have one tool. We're trying to create a toolbox of many tools that you could have at your disposal in the future. And I just want to just share that because it was one of the big priorities for the League of Cities. And thank you very much for having me, and certainly I'm here to answer any questions. And thank you for allowing me the time to come to share a few thoughts.
Anyone have any questions for the Assembly? Uh-oh.
I think I covered it all.
No, you're not getting off that
All right.
easy.
No, you did a great job though, and there's a lot of interesting things there on the safe drinking water and all that. But because I have a relative in Northside who's concerned about what's going to happen over there, when will we know about this bill 8900 and whether it passes, and will it really keep the facility there? The Hazel Hawkins.
That's
yeah. Sorry.
yeah, AB 900. Yeah.
Oh,
we will
AB 900. I wrote down AB 900.
It's in Senate Appropriations Committee. That's the biggest challenge because even though I was able to convince the Speaker in the Assembly and the Appropriations Committee that this is important enough to move forward. And originally the bill was Hazel Hawkins. Then everyone wanted me to expand it to restoring the 10% Medi-Cal cuts to all providers, all clinics, all hospitals, all doctors. So I did that because we had time in the session to have that discussion. But when it went to Assembly Appropriations Committee, they narrowed my bill back to its original intent, only to help the skilled nursing centers and hospitals in California. So that's where it's at before. And my job when I get back in August is to convince the Senate Appropriations Committee to allow it to move forward in that narrow form. Otherwise, not only Hazel Hawkins, like I said, it's an important aspect of the hospital, but many of these are expected to close because that 10% equates to about 25 to 40% of those centers' budgets. And without that, things won't pencil out. And what happens in many of these communities, if you don't have that type of service here, you got to send your family members many hours away. You can't have that same kind of close connection as you do when you live here locally in the county, close by, close to where you work and close to where you live. So we had a whole coalition of different skilled nursing facilities all across the state that were on board and are supporting this bill. So we're hoping that the Senate will do the right thing. And I got to really talk to the Senate Pro Tem President, Darrell Steinberg, to hopefully get his support to allow it to move forward too.
So the time frame is?
It will be, when I get back, I think the first Senate Appropriations Committee, I think is around August 12th or so, and then we'll know by then whether the bill remains alive. And I know if we get it out of appropriations, it will sail through the Senate, because at every committee outside of appropriations, the policy committees and before all assembly, the vote's been unanimous, bipartisan, both Democrats and Republicans, not a single vote in opposition. But it's really a fiscal issue, and that's why the fiscal committees end up killing a bill by just not letting it out and not letting it move forward. So that's where the fate lies on that committee next month.
Anybody else?
Mr. Mayor,
Yes, ma'am.
do you need letters of support?
Oh yes, certainly if the council would love to send a letter of support because that's the critical time that the next committee stopped. And what happens when you send a letter of support in the analysis, they'll list all the letters or hospitals or city councils that have sent a letter in, and we support this bill. And certainly that would be helpful. And if you could send that in, that would really help us out. A simple way to send for you to weigh in on that bill.
And we can get with your aid and figure out how to word it.
Definitely.
Correct.
We can even send sample aid.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you very much, everybody. Thank you for your service.
Thank
you
you
to all the citizens of San Juan Bautista.
Okay,
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Mr. Mayor, can we direct staff to work on that, or should I?
She
Linda's offering? Oh, great. Wonderful. Thank you.
volunteered. Okay, moving on. Item 3C, Breastfeeding Awareness Month Proclamation. Is there farm workers, health center? Ladies?
Hello, my name is Angelica, and I'm a nutrition and health educator from the San Benito Health Foundation in Hollister. And this is
My name is Margaret Nunez, and I'm the And I'm Rosa Vivian Fernandez. I'm the CEO of San Benito Health Foundation.
And we are here to come and invite you all to our this event that is coming up August 14th. We are celebrating the National Health Center Week. And with that, we want to invite you in the morning. We have a health fair, and we are also celebrating the National Breastfeeding Awareness Month, where we have an annual breastfeeding walk with the whole community, and that is from 9 to 12. And in the evening, we celebrate our annual open house, and that is from 4 to 7 p.m. And thank you for having us here, and we hope to see you there.
Just, am I supposed to read all this? You know I'm not good at this. Okay. Breastfeeding Awareness Month in San Juan Bautista proclamation. Whereas all available knowledge indicates that human milk optimally enhances the growth, development, and well-being of the infant by providing the best possible nutrition and protection against serious health conditions including obesity, diabetes, and allergies. And whereas breastfeeding is economical, providing its benefits at little or no cost, and whereas breastfeeding benefits society through lower health care costs for infants, a healthier workforce, stronger family bonds, and less landfill waste. And whereas breastfeeding saves lives by reducing the incidence of several types of life-threatening cancers in women and serious illnesses in vulnerable infants. And whereas the professionals at San Benito Health Foundation, WIC program, Hazel Hawkins Memorial Hospital and clinics, and San Benito County Public Health are collaborating to promote breastfeeding education and resources to all families of San Benito County and their employees, such as the lactation accommodation laws requiring employees to provide their breastfeeding employers to provide their breastfeeding employees both the time and a private space in which to either nurse their infants or to express breast milk for their benefit. And whereas this year's World Breastfeeding Week theme is breastfeeding, support close to mothers, highlights the importance of looking back to further the future of infants and young children through optimal care beginning with breastfeeding. And whereas the people of San Juan Bautista, California are deserving of good health, and now, therefore be it resolved, the City Council does hereby proclaim August 2013 as Breastfeeding Awareness Month in the City of San Juan Bautista in order to actively promote breastfeeding as the optimum and preferred method of infant feeding and as our community culture norm. And yes, I'm not really good at this reading.
You did fine.
Yeah.
Two more of these things to do. Are you the Health Center Week proclamation too? Or?
Yes, we are.
Okay. You want to stand there and see me stumble through this one too? Or you can take a seat. Okay. Health Center Week proclamation, August 11th through the 17th, 2013. Whereas community health centers, also known as federally qualified health centers, are nonprofit, community-directed providers of health care to the medically underserved according to the American healthcare system. the homeless, migrant, and seasonal laborers or farm workers in the state of California, and whereas the community health center ensure access to high-quality primary and preventive health care and other medical services integrated with outreach, patient education, translation, and other enabling services. The 18 million people in the United States, including the 55,561 individuals each year in the state of California, and whereas the community health center in the midst of economic turbulence are expanding to accommodate increased demand, treating more of our citizens regardless of insurance status or ability to pay, and whereas the community health centers are models for managing chronic disease, reducing racial and ethnic disparities, and curbing infant mortality and preventable death, upholding the highest quality of care in a cost-effective manner, and whereas this year's National Health Center Week celebrates America's health centers and the theme Powering Healthier Communities, and is meant to showcase the multitude of ways in which American health centers are empowering healthier communities. Now, therefore, let it be resolved that the San Juan Bautista City Council hereby proclaims the week of August 11th through August 17th, 2013 as National Healthcare Center Week in the city of San Juan Bautista. Signed by, okay. All right, because I've got one more to do here. Okay. Wait, we need a drink. Oh, it's good vodka. Okay. Farm Worker Health Week proclamation. Whereas an estimated 3 to 5 million migrant and seasonal farm workers are employed in the nation's multi-billion-dollar agricultural industry, and whose back-breaking labor makes possible the production and harvest of many crops, and whereas agriculture ranks among the most dangerous occupations, subjecting workers to health and occupational risk, yet migrant and seasonal farm workers, by virtue of their work in economically disadvantaged status, confront significant barriers to accessing doctors and needed health services, and whereas poverty, substandard housing conditions coupled with exposure to the elements, pesticides, and chemical fertilizer leave farm workers at risk for higher rates of infectious disease and chronic conditions such as diabetes, cancer, and hypertension than the general population, and whereas the Migrant Health Program enacted in 1962 planted the seed that has enabled communities to establish migrant health centers, which today serve more than 1 million migrant seasonal farm workers and their families, and whereas the migrant health centers have evolved into strong models of primary care practice addressing the complex needs of a vulnerable population while demonstrating the value of outreach, patient education, and linguistically and culturally competent care to promote better health and ensure healthy communities, and whereas studies have confirmed that migrant health centers deliver comprehensive, high-quality, and cost-effective preventive and primary health care services in addition to lifting the barriers of health care and reducing health disparities. Now, therefore, the City Council of the City of San Juan Bautista hereby proclaims the week of August 11th through August 17th, 2013 as Farm Worker Health Care Week in the City of San Juan Bautista.
I wanted to say a few words. The reason that we have 3 proclamations is that our community health center is unique. We actually were established over 40 years ago as a migrant health center. In 2007, we became federally funded as both a migrant health center and a community health center. We also are unique in that we have a WIC program within our community health center. We have a site, at the Wynn Market, and we also have a mobile that has been fully operational now, and we look forward to having it visit San Juan Bautista in the throughout the summer months and fall. It did come up for the emergency preparedness at the Wynn Market. But again, you have a resource in the community that is unique in that it has funding of all three federal programs. And we look forward to having you there, and we also look forward to bringing back the Binational Health Week celebration in October, which we have here at our site in San Juan Bautista. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you again for having us here. We hope to see you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Move along to item E, monthly financial statements, treasurer's report. Is Chuck here? Let's see. Chuck.
Is there any questions there? Kind of profile it, just to give you a background. Wednesday is still reconciling the end of the year fundings, and she'll be updating this probably when we get this into probably August meeting. She will have reconciled most of the expenditures versus the project. These are preliminary because we're still getting some of the bills like tonight, when you see on your ledger there, is that they back into some of them into June, and they're still in the last fiscal year. Identifying the ones that come into the next fiscal year for our next budget. It's a work in progress. She'll continue to do this until the audit takes place, I think in early October, September.
Any questions, with that?
Right.
Yeah, on the warrant listing,
Yes,
PARSAC 2018,
that's our liability insurance.
is that an annual payment or?
Yeah, that's our annual.
And it comes due at the end of June?
Yes.
Or July 1st,
Yeah.
I guess. Okay. So that's a one-time, once-a-year
Yeah.
payment?
Then your attention is called to, because I had questioned it, the Bracewell building bill of $34,000. That's unusual high, and I broke that out because there has been a lot of work on the supplemental environmental project, which is the purple line, and I identified $22,293 of that bill was related to that, where we had to put that chlorinator and analyzer in and get it hooked up and in there. So that's part of that thing. So his real true bill for that would be $11,853.
On that Bracewell, this is at least the second month in a row that he's had real high amounts. And I thought that he designed that system back when they were doing the project. It's almost like we pay him twice to do the same work.
And it has to do with, he had submitted the report and it was approved in concept on the recycling and everything. And all of a sudden the state came back and says he has to submit another report, and he submitted it and it came back just the other day, July 2nd, we got the thing where it had 5 pages of questions, and so we got to answer it some more on the swing elbow arrangement and stuff like that.
So too much time had elapsed, or too many changes were made, or both?
Yeah, the time as well as more regulations that come down from Sacramento.
Yeah.
Too much bureaucracy.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a polite way of saying it. Yeah.
That's why our budget's in better shape than the state's.
Roger, I've never noticed before CalPERS payments.
CalPERS, that's the retirement at the end of the year where we match what the employee sets aside for their retirement, and I think our match now is 1%, is it? Yeah, 1%.
So that's not one of these places where we could be underfunded? Or
No, this is
like some of these other-
this is like a 401k matching is what they put in. We match it at 1%.
okay.
So it's it's fully funded because what they put away and then what you put away, then we earmark it into that account. So it's not incurred and built up as a unfunded balance, yeah.
Yeah, I asked Trish about it because it's the first time I've seen it, and you said that it's normally an electronic transfer. We don't normally have a check.
It's a process of receiving the funds, so now we're cutting them checks.
And this is 2 months per employee rather than one. Yeah, normally it would be about half of those amounts.
And you'll see it on the second. You'll see it on the second page, the very last one, and the next to the last one. That's normally what it is: 185.77, 185.29.
Okay, and the other three are 2 months.
Double that for.
Yeah.
Okay. Any other questions?
So you answered mine.
That was one I had.
Okay, moving on. Linda, you yell at me when you have a speaker card, okay?
This speaker card is for later, much
Okay,
later in the
all
agenda.
right. Because I keep forgetting to ask. All right, item 3F, library report. Any questions? Item G, fire chief's report.
Evening. So we had, this is the total of June, 26 calls total, 12 in the city, 14 in the county. And we didn't go to the city once.
No.
Not at all. We didn't have any major incidents in the last month, but a bunch of things have happened. Our construction on our living quarters has started and is well along. Captain Dover from Hollister Fire has been assigned to the station down here, and he's down here 5 days a week during the day. His hours are 8 to 5.
About 7:30. Gets here about 7:30. He goes till about 5:30.
One of the things that we did is the county engine 9312, which was the old, very large engine, has been replaced with 9321, a newer engine. We kind of lucked out on that one. Didn't quite realize at the time, but our city engine and that county engine are from the same manufacturer, and they're so close in manufacture date that the controls and everything are very much the same. So as far as operators, it made it very simple for them to be able to operate both units, which also means that the county volunteers who operated that engine can come here and operate our engine. So it's been very beneficial to have it happen. The sleeping program has started. It's kind of rudimentary right now. Of course, there's always going to be some problems whenever you change anything. So it's been a few little glitches here and there, but overall everything's been going pretty well. It's greatly reduced our response times, of course. We did receive 2 grants. One was for $4,000 for boots and gloves, which we received, except for 2 pairs of boots, I believe. 2 pairs of boots still. And the other grant we got was an AFG Assistance for Firefighters grant, and that was for driver-operator training. Originally it was $7,200. We're kind of negotiating with them on that amount right now because of the change of the overall change with the transition. The volunteers being assigned to Hollister kind of reduced our number of volunteers, which we're not sure how much it's going to impact it, but it's going to impact the total amount of the grant, because the grant is written to reflect the amount of people in the department. So we still have to see how that's going to come out. And then what I added down at the bottom is a response summary for the last 6 months, and it's giving you the number of calls we had and the number of volunteers that showed up per call for each month. And for the first 6 months, we had 138 calls, and we averaged 5.67 volunteers each call. So we were doing pretty good. Okay, any questions?
And we have Mike O'Connor, our county fire chief here. And
I haven't seen you
Thanks, John.
since early May or late April. Just to give you an idea, the transition is we got through that portion. On June 23rd, we started the enactment of the contracts and since then we've been going good. We've been tested a couple of times. We've had multiple structure fires or grass fires at the same time, vehicle accidents. We've maxed out the system pretty much twice, where we've had up to 8 engines in the system staffed, double what normally is staffed on a daily basis. Thanks to the volunteers here staffing up a couple rigs. We had a vehicle accident here in town as well as out on 101. Both were covered by your guys and our rescue rig and engine coming from the city of Hollister. So things are working pretty much like what we thought they would. We would always love to have more people participating in the volunteer program and covering and engines, but it's working. We got a driver-operator class coming up in August. They'll get more people qualified to drive. Once they get all their classes done and sign-offs, they'll be driving too, so we'll have more drivers in the system. I'm just trying to think of anything else. Thanks to Roger for the construction. It's going up fast. Pretty incredible. So I'm here to answer any questions about the transition and the way it's running.
I think one thing that's really good is I see the engines out and you guys out, and people are aware now that it's not just a quiet little center here in town. I mean, I see an engine out every day.
Good.
And
they're supposed to be out there training. They're supposed to be out there doing fire prevention, answering questions in the community. They're your fire department. That's what they're the guys that live here in town. Some of them live over in Hollister. Some live in the county. But it's a small community. We're tied together. I think we're all out there answering questions and doing the job that you asked us to do.
Good.
Also, we had a fire up in San Juan Canyon a week ago. At that, it was about a 2-acre grass fire up in the canyon. Engine 14, which is the engine here, the line engine that's staffed, and then engine 24, both responded out of here. We had 2 structure rigs from here protecting the canyon residents, as well as we sent an engine from the city of Hollister to assist in structure protection, a grass rig from the city of Hollister to assist in the suppression of the grass fire and brush fire, plus a water tender, plus a chief officer, all was in the canyon, and pretty much everything got there except for the water tender almost before any other response from any other agency. But CAL FIRE was probably the lead suppression to that fire because it was in the SRA. They were able to get in there across some of the bridges that our heavier equipment structure rigs cannot do, but they were put in the places where they were supposed to do structure protection, protecting the houses and the residents up there. And then the grass rigs, the lighter weight rigs, our grass rigs went in and did the suppression of the fire. And it worked good. We worked, I think, fairly well with CAL FIRE on that fire. Air tankers came in, helped suppress it too from the airport.
It seemed like it was out very quickly. I happened to be at the post office.
Yeah, CAL FIRE and San Diego County and San Juan Fire and Hollister Fire, all one, did a very good job in suppressing that fire quickly. It was a windy day. If it would have got any more of a head start, yeah, we could have had something that would have been disastrous. I think it went good. I think it was a good test of the system, and I think we emptied the world on it, get it out fast before it could get a head start. So it's just some of the examples. I know there's going to be more, but remember we're only about 20 days into this thing, so it's working pretty good. I think it's working pretty good.
Great.
Mr. Mayor, I have a couple more questions, if it's okay.
Okay, go ahead.
Have either of you stayed in the 3 little beds that we have over there temporary until?
No, my wife won't let that happen.
It doesn't look like a good way. You're going to wait till the building's finished, huh? Even if you do something like that.
We got some temporary residents over here. It's temporary for the guys. I think what we got in construction is going to be very nice for them, and it's going to be a great improvement. We got some curtains for them, by the way. We got some blinds and we got some.
Oh, nice. So they're not just 3 beds now.
Right.
They have a little privacy. I have a question for John, too. John, I like this response summary here, but I'm curious about how many total volunteers there are now. I think I heard you wanted 80 or I mean, not volunteers, excuse me, reserves. You wanted 80 and you had 67, or?
Yeah, we're right now sitting at about 67
It's still
total
about
in the
there.
system. Some of that was because numbers weren't as high as we thought they were. There's some information that was, you know, some people were counted twice, some people were moved around. We have, right now, the City Council of Hollister passed the resolution to do a continuous hiring of reserve firefighters. So it's a continuous hiring now. We don't have to wait for a posting or that. It's continually posted. It has all the new requirements and standards and all that kind of stuff for the reserves. And it's out there all the time. And we're encouraging people that are interested in the fire service to come in. We're looking at August to start our internship, or September to start the internship with the colleges to bring those candidates that are interested in the fire service, that want to go to a full-time position and need that 1 year of training to come work in the fire station along with the engine companies. So that's additional personnel that will be coming in through the college. It's not anything part of the reserve program. These are people who may live in San Jose but need to get training, and they'll come down here, get the training from us, and then go to their future positions or future goals or whatever they want to do as fire service.
So we shouldn't look for that 67 to take a jump until there's some more training done and
We
then
got
people
five right
completing.
now. We just hired five in the city of Hollister. We just got them on board, passed all their physicals and medicals and background checks, and they just came online. They're not part of that 67, so there's some more, and we're just going to continue picking them up and getting applicants.
They're in the pipeline.
Right, they're in the pipeline. Those five just came in the pipeline, and we're going to continue. But right now, with the number we have, it's working. We're getting coverage here almost we are getting coverage every day. Drivers at night, thanks to Robert a couple of times, he's covered us. Hey, Robert, we need some coverage next week or this day, and he's come through. And some of the other guys too. We got a couple of county guys that were county volunteers now over here, and they love the community of San Juan, and they're doing a lot of donated time and stuff of that nature. Everybody's pulling together as a team. It's good to see.
That number's not static, it floats.
Right.
It's constantly moving, there's constantly peaking. People, for example, take a leave of absence for some reason or another.
Right.
Others, it just comes and goes.
But you're close enough to
Oh yeah,
staff.
it's working. Yeah. And I think
Great.
if we get more drivers qualified and stuff, that's going to help some of the driving issues. You're really restricted to operate the equipment. There's a lot of certifications you need to get through to get to drive equipment. It's not just a driver's license. We want qualified people on that pump that no one's going to get injured on there, that hose, or crash the rig. So it's going pretty good. We got some people away. Also, there are seasonal firefighters. They're out fighting fires throughout the state that they are not here as part of the system right now because of that. But it's still working pretty good overall.
Good.
And your engine did help us on the structure fire. Thank you for the volunteers that responded to the city of Hollister on our Tiburon structure fire. They came in and assisted us and helped cover back while we had a 100-acre fire at the exact same time going in down by the Pinnacles. So we had two major fires going in the county at the same time, and we were covering both. And we actually broke another grass fire at 152 in San Felipe, and we covered it all. We sent companies, structure protection, wildland, water tenders. Everything was on the road, and I was running between all of it.
As the engine's now returning.
Yeah, as the engine's returning.
That was in July,
That's in July's total. So, and the rally went good. I think we had one call out here, vehicle accident on 156 at Lucy Brown. We had several in and around the city of Hollister, and some medical calls within the city of Hollister. But I don't think there was any related rally calls here in San Juan. So I think overall it went pretty good. I'm just trying to give you guys information, dumping some information on you guys.
Thank you.
Well, Mr. Mayor, I'd like to compliment Mike for taking the lead on this, and he's done an outstanding job. And I've seen a tremendous enthusiasm of our volunteers and the reservists here. And they've done an outstanding job of cleaning up the place and working forward. And I just see a lot of excitement, and it's just, and it's. I'd like to thank Mike for doing that. He just taken the lead on that and there. And
That's-
we have Councilman Valdivia in there, and compliment her for backing that program through the city of Hollister. It wouldn't have happened without their effort.
And trust me, guys, I'm just giving some leadership. These guys have pulled together as a team and are actually doing the work. You know, I just give them some guidance. So they really have pulled together here. The county, Hollister guys, they all pulled together and doing a great job.
And I'm learning new words, volunteers, reserves.
There's a lot of terms.
Regular.
Reserves. They're all reserves. I call them volunteers, but they're reserves. They're all reserves.
They're all reserved,
Yeah,
except,
everybody's reserved.
except our 6 volunteers.
Correct,
We
correct.
have 6 volunteers,
Correct.
and they're holding it together, and then we got
Correct.
all the reserves.
And you got some paid
Oh,
staff in there and all.
so-
Yes.
Are the 6 volunteers counted in the 67?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Mike, I just want to say, thank you to you and John and Roger. We're going in this thing over 3 weeks, and it's more than I expected. I think it's great. I come down every day. I talk to the young kids. I call them kids because they like the structure. They're excited. The citizens in town see the engines out, the apparatus ready to go, and I think it's a win-win thing for the county, for the city of San Juan, and it's 100%. I think we did it right. Just keep it going. And I thank both chiefs and Roger for getting this building up and running in less than a month. But I was here a couple days ago. In fact, 2 kids came in, and they were 20. They wanted applications.
Awesome.
They saw what was going on, so we sent them over to Station 1. And I don't want to forget Captain Dover.
No.
Very good fit for the reserves.
He's a very dynamic person.
So far, just a great deal overall. And thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you.
And, we're having 24-hour coverage here, and our response times are under a minute.
Yeah.
Wow.
On a medical, that's very, very important.
Yeah, and I'll tell you, it is a compliment the medic unit says, most of the time we were at scene first. It's nice to see the engine crew there taking initiative while we pull up, so they've seen the difference too. They're seeing that the engine's getting there quick and responding and stuff of that nature, so they appreciate it as well.
And now that we have full staffing, we also have AMR coming over, and we're doing a little bit of cross-training. They're actually helping us in critiquing on our medical evaluations of patients and scene scenario of how we're taking care of it. And this way we can all work together and be on the same page. So when we get to a
Get
scene,
all those records in one place so everybody knows exactly what training each one has.
yeah, patient handover.
Any final questions? Or?
Anybody else? Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you both.
Okay, moving on. Item 3H, Sheriff's Report, monthly activities.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, council members, staff. We have a report. It's been a few months, and hopefully you've had an opportunity to look at that. I gave you an extra one just because I've been remiss on the other ones. I figured I'd get 2 for 1 tonight. The separate one is from the July 4th rally. We were busy. It leads off there with the attempted murder. And then we had lewd acts. I think everybody knows about the burglary at the Windmill Market. We also had a commercial burglary at the post office. Coroner cases. There's a lot of things going on. We had 2 DUIs, 2 suspended license, issued some parking tickets. But overall, we didn't get the problems we were anticipating. It was it was okay. We survived that. I had a reserve with me through the whole time, Greg Bryant, which really helps when you have another person in the car. As far as June, we had vehicle accidents, stolen vehicles, missing persons, found persons. 1 firework complaint, but this year I've never seen so many fireworks going off. And it was the same in Hollister. It'd be really interesting if we could get the people who are setting these off on this event, if they just pool their resources, we could have a pretty nice show. Seriously, I mean, there was probably thousands and thousands of dollars going up in smoke.
You mean the illegal ones or the legal ones?
Oh, no, I'm talking illegal.
Yeah.
It's, I mean, oh my goodness. Yeah, the legal ones, we don't have a problem with that. I mean, as far as the canyon, having that fire in the canyon was kind of like a wake up, you know, because that can happen. We have these illegal fireworks going off at night. I mean, I can't even imagine. But are there any questions?
Questions?
I don't have any.
22 suspicious persons or vehicles.
I relate that because of the rally, upcoming rally. So we got a lot of people coming into the area, you know, that we don't know. So everybody gets checked out.
So it was more around that
Yeah,
that
that's the
time period.
Majority of
I
that.
thought it was just an active neighborhood watch.
No, you know, the neighborhood, on that attempted murder, that was neighborhood watch related. I mean, the citizens saw what was happening, reported it, and we were just very fortunate that we were able to get a suspect in custody on that pretty rapidly. But yeah, you're right. The neighborhood watch as of yesterday, they're running with it on their own now. It's truly a neighborhood watch. The citizens are coordinating that stuff. That's also a good thing.
So I think when I pulled up on the engine, we had probably 6 sheriff units there.
7.
7.
First time in about 3 years, I was able to put 7 names on the end of my report.
What was this for?
That was for the attempted murder? Or?
Oh, you were there too.
Yeah.
Wow.
It wasn't me.
Well, the fire department was there also.
Mr. Mayor?
Yes.
About the residential burglaries? The 2 residential burglaries?
On the residential, I believe I put those locations down.
Yes.
6th Street.
Yeah.
Was that when the party wasn't home? Or was that during?
Both of those are the majority of them now are unoccupied residents. One of those, I just happened to be nearby, and we got to it before they had gained access. So that worked out. And then we had a K-9 unit on the scene as well. So we'd love to catch the people doing it. We'll see what happens. One of those is an ongoing, so I don't want to discuss too much.
Are those houses close? Are they back to each other, or are they apart?
Kitty corner.
Kitty corner.
Yeah.
In the neighborhood watch meetings, it seems like there's a lot of talk about drug activity. Do you think most of this crime is related to drug activity?
I would connect them, yeah, absolutely. If you have a drug habit, you're not holding down a job. You got to have drugs. You got to have money. And the sad thing about burglaries is the fact that maybe this is my favorite microphone. It means a lot to me. I paid maybe $100 for this microphone, and some person comes in to my house, takes that and sells it for $5. That's what it's really it's through the neighborhood watch. We can probably eliminate that once everybody gets on board as far as being able to recognize and not being afraid to call 911, get involved on it.
We have drug runners in town, both on foot and in cars?
I think everybody who's been in the community knows there's drug issues in our community. Yeah, and there's not a community in America that doesn't have a drug issue. I wasn't at your neighborhood watch meeting yesterday, but I think for the most part, yeah, we have drug issues. I'm hoping, as we spoke yesterday, to get a couple of speakers, and maybe even to come to the council and explain some of the issues, some of the gang issues that we have in our communities, the drug issues that it's very difficult to address at this point.
Anybody have any other questions for?
No, good.
Thank you, Deputy.
Thank you.
Thanks, Rich.
Okay, item 3I, Public Works Report. Roger?
Mr. Mayor, members of the council, in my report I kind of identified the supplemental environmental project, that is the Reclaim Water Project. We have completed the underground distribution line on 3rd Street. We've commenced and got about 90% the swing elbow assemblies at the various 3 sites, which is the Abbey Park, Lux Library, and the Creek Bridge subdivision, Val Vista. And currently the Abbey Park swing elbow is operating in the potable framework. The other 2 have not been connected because we have to do a little bit of changing of the sprinkler systems, but they'll be done shortly. We have not been authorized to use the reclaimed water until the engineering report is approved by the health department and the regional board and given us the okay. And then once that's okay, the work at the sewer treatment plant is about done with all of the work, and then we can start delivering reclaimed water shortly.
Did you have to cut into the street or into 4th Street at Abbey Park there, or was it already?
No, there was a outlet or a lateral that was installed with the infrastructure project that was on the 4th Street side, and we just had to cut across the lawn area to the 5th Street side and then down to the sprinkler head and valve head arrangements about midway through the ballpark.
Well, at least they thought that part, did that part.
Yeah.
Great.
And our construction crews, Joe, Armand, and Terry did that underground line from 4th Street to 5th Street and trenched it and installed the line and then backfilled it. So they did an excellent job. And then we went out to bid and hired a contractor to put the swing elbow assemblies in. The firehouse expansion, later on in the city manager's report, I highlighted that. We're continuing to make headway on it, and overall it's been a very positive facility, and it's been cleaned up, and the public works crews have done an outstanding job on the retaining wall and the work around the site. And I'd like to thank Pat Garrett for stepping up to the plate and doing an outstanding job.
Okay, I have to ask you one question. What are the pipes sticking up out of the wall?
Those are pipe sleeves, and then eventually we'll cut those down, and depending on what we want to do is we can put a guardrail there, so the pipes and the guardrail will be there, and concrete it in so that nobody will fall over it.
I thought, I walked out there today and I thought maybe you were going to put in some fancy fountain or something.
New flagpoles.
With recycled water.
Water fountain.
Okay, item I, Public Works Report.
One quick
I did that
question,
already.
Mr. Mayor.
Yes.
So we are on track with the purple valve as far as the outline that
the milestones that the Regional Water
Thank
Quality
you.
Control Board established, yes, we're on board. We slipped a little bit. The swing elbows were supposed to be in by June the 25th, and they gave us a 30-day extension, and so we're right on board. You know, it's just we had gone out to bid, and we didn't get any bidders, and so we had to go back out and solicit new proposals. So that cost us about 3 weeks, and finally we got going. So we were a little bit late, but the regional board granted us an extension.
and you're keeping them appraised that we're back on track now
Yes.
and all that. Thank you.
Any speaker cards on city manager's report? Okay. Item J, Code Enforcement Report. Matt?
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, council members. just wanted to give you the report of code enforcement. With the 4th of July coming up, we kind of saw the dried grass being a problem around town, and so from hearing from citizens as well as us knowing where those vacant lots were, we kind of sent letters out to those property owners asking them to cut back the weeds, given that it can be a fire danger for the 4th of July. We sent out 8 letters. 2 of them have not cut their weeds up until this point, and so we have been following up with them, sent them out another letter, and at a point we will have to take care of that ourselves as a city and clear that if they do not act on that. And we want to thank the property owners that did take action and clear those weeds for the 4th of July. And also, if you guys don't have any questions about that, have some information about the sign ordinance.
I'm sorry, going back to one. Are those letters, are they mailed to their P.O. box, or are they hand kind of to the house itself?
It goes to the P.O. box of the property owner.
Okay.
So, if there's someone renting there, they're not getting the notice as the property owner.
You think maybe if we deliver to the residents, might get a faster reaction, or
that might be.
Maybe if we give it to Joe and have him delivered to the address.
Like slip it underneath the door or put it on the
door. Or door hanger, yeah.
Door
Yeah.
hanger. On
That's
that,
a good point.
Just in case, they could always come back and say, well, I didn't get anything, I didn't know,
Right.
and so forth.
If there is a residence,
Yeah.
you didn't say if the 2 who
Right.
haven't responded are
If they're
residences
occupied
or
or
empty
not.
lots.
Most of them are vacant lots that we concentrate on, but there could be a residential house that's overgrown with weeds, and then that would.
That is a good point. We'll do that if it is a house, maybe a combination of them.
House and land.
Yeah. Anything else?
I don't think so.
Okay,
Sign ordinance?
so the sign ordinance update. This last week, there was a special meeting held at Doña Esther's on Thursday, and there the business owners and community members came together and voiced their concerns and ideas about the sign ordinance. And so at this point, city staff is going through and revising, as well as is open to hearing any more comments and concerns about that. And we're kind of we're at the point where we want to hear and construct something that everyone, business owners, community members, can be happy with, and that will represent San Juan Bautista, and that they can be on board with. And so the next Planning Commission meeting in August is canceled, so the next revised ordinance will probably be presented at September Planning Commission.
Any questions?
So the Planning Commission understands the fact that compliance will be a lot easier if they get the buy-in of the business owners.
Right, and some of the main concerns, are about basically heard from the business owners were that, having a sign saying, "Hey, I'm open," and kind of tweaking that language so they can feel like they can say, "Hey, I'm open," and not have just a paper sign in the window or what it might be. So making some of those tweaks and having that input is what we need. So that was a good meeting. I'm sure there'll be another meeting, kind of getting that group together to come up with those answers or answers to the problem.
Yeah, the meeting was very productive and identified a lot of key issues that the merchants were concerned with, as well as our Planning Commission. And so I think that there's grounds to adjust and bring together all the parties and come forth with a workable ordinance that can be executed and enforced, and everybody would comply with.
Excellent.
Okay, any other questions from that? Moving on.
You're off the hook.
Not off the hook. Never done.
Okay.
Excuse me. City manager report, Roger?
Okay, Mr. Mayor, members of the council, again, in my report here, I've attached the various tasks of the firehouse, fire station addition there, and you can see I outlined in red many of the steps that we've taken already, and the ones that we've received proposals for, and then you can see that some of the things we haven't accomplished, but it's ongoing, and since I've made this report, we've complied with some additional ones, so it's ongoing, and I'll keep you posted on as we go along in each one of these. We've had Ray Espinosa, the county executive officer, over here today, and he toured the thing, and he was very impressed with the production and the activities that's going on and how far we've moved along. That's good. The old brewery, from the Planning Commission level, the Planning Commission and the Historical Resources Board conducted public hearings and received input, comments from a variety of property owners and concerned people. They've discussed the merits of the proposal and made necessary findings, and they established 11 findings and conditions of approval. They've adopted 41 conditions of approval, earmarking the project to go forward. The Historical Resources Board made a recommendation to the Planning Commission for approval. Planning Commission reviewed their recommendations and concurred, and they approved it by resolution to go forward, subject to the 41 conditions. And of those conditions, the restoration and rehabilitation of the building will have to be brought back to the Planning Commission in the design phases to show how the building is being rehabilitated and replicated with the salvaged and restored features that is saved during the dismantling of the building. Overall, I think it's a positive direction to the area. It's going to take and rehabilitate that building. It also carries with it the provision to construct a 31 parking stall parking lot, paved, striped, handicap accessible, curbs, gutters, storm drain, underground water line, fire hydrants, street lights. Facilities will be extended to each of the buildings for the capabilities of each building being fire sprinkled to comply with our ordinance and stuff like that, and landscaping and paved Pierce Lane to the easterly boundaries of the property. Currently, it's a graveled road.
All the way to the back there?
No,
Or
to
just
the east of the property line. Yeah, not all the way back to the other, just the first 150, 200 feet or whatever it is. They will do the landscaping as well as construct new driveways. There'll be 2 driveways, one off of Franklin Street and then one off of the Alameda.
You guys go along with all this stuff.
Mm-hmm.
So there was no appeals filed then?
No, and the appeal period extended till Friday, July the 12th, and no appeals were filed. So then that way, we are having a meeting next week with the owner to go over his sequence and construction. He's hired a construction manager as well as his architect, and he has also employed a person that specializes in demolition of the structure, and they'll start shortly upon complying with various conditions of approval that we've established for it. But they have to submit plans, and we have to plan check it and make sure that the sequence reflects what the Planning Commission would like.
Where's this owner from?
Mr. Cerda lives in San Jose. He operates a various little enterprise buildings, but his main thing is he makes churros, and he sells them to the various sports activities up and down the Central Coast.
So we're pulling some people from out of the area to put together some construction in our town, which is good.
Okay.
And the only other thing is I'd like to relay the Planning Commission as well as the Historical Resources Board have noticed that particularly during the school years, the amount of school buses and tour buses that clog Second Street here, all the way from the State Park Mission all the way down to San Jose Avenue as well as Jefferson. And some days it gets so congested here, and they would recommend that the council would get into a dialogue with the State Park and the Mission to see what can be done to alleviate the bus parking and congestion on Second Street, and see if we can provide some space where they can park and utilize and not clog up the Second Street. We have noticed that a number of school buses towards the end of the year in June have been using the parking lot in front of the soccer field down on the Alameda, and we've seen an increased use of that. And then the kids will walk up 3rd Street and Franklin and Washington Street to the Mission and the State Park. So, yeah.
Does the state parks allow parking along the front of the plaza where the tire stops are painted red?
Only to unload.
Only to unload?
Unload, yes. Mm-hmm.
You know, why don't we consider prohibiting bus parking along Second adjacent to the Mission, and that way we'll catch them before they park there, and then they can go park on San Jose Street across from the community center. I think trying to get the Mission or the state parks to deal with excuse me, to deal with the bus drivers is not productive. I think what we need to do is prohibit parking there and require that they park elsewhere.
Yeah. And now, and that's a good point, and we've been trying to encourage, and I sometimes go out and talk to the bus drivers to try to encourage them to go use San Jose Avenue. Unfortunately, when you line up 15, 16 buses, San Jose Avenue can only take 4 or 5. And it just, it's overpowering.
During the day, sometimes this whole street is full of buses.
Yeah.
We get that many, huh?
I'd love to approach the Mission to see if we could open up that vacant lot there and then allow them to
If they
utilize that.
could use
You know,
that
that would be
and just say just bus parking.
just bus parking only, yeah.
Yeah, and
They
that's
could
what,
drop out in front
that's
of the
how it
Mission.
used to be. The buses all parked down in that dirt lot. And now it's chained off, and most of those buses are visiting the Mission. I don't understand why the Mission doesn't open that lot back up just for bus parking, not for anything else, and put the buses in there like they used to. In fact, when I've asked about all these things about no dogs allowed and this and that the Mission is, the kick the Mission has been on lately about no dogs in that lot.
I'd like to address that. That's not the Mission, that's an employee of the Mission who's doing it on his own.
He's putting the signs up on his own and the Mission's allowing him to do it?
They've told him to take them down.
Oh, good.
But don't blame the Mission for that.
But I was told that the reason the Mission was doing it, because I didn't know it was an individual, by an employee of the Mission, that they were doing it because they didn't want the kids to step in the dog poop when they got off the buses. And I'm like, they don't park the buses in there anymore, so how does that make any sense?
I think the approach that the Historical Resources and the Planning Commission would like to do is to get the state park, the city of San Juan Bautista, and the Mission together to talk about this thing and then maybe collaborate on some type of a solution. And I think that's the key to it. And I would be first to admit that the city of San Juan Bautista, we could, if the parking lot there, the thing was open for the buses, we could go in there and then grade it so that it's relatively smooth. I know from a liability standpoint, they don't like to dump people out on a rough parking area because they could stumble and it increases their liability. But by grading it and smoothing it out, it would eliminate some of the problems, and maybe that could be a solution. You know. And we're willing to collaborate and participate and come up with a solution.
So, can you take the lead and
I will
organize the meeting?
If the council so directs, Matt and I can take the lead, and we can contact the state park and the mission and see if we can get in with the city council and have a meeting and
See if we
discuss some
get
of the
something.
alternates, and maybe some of them are feasible and maybe some of them are not.
See if we can get something going before the school year starts.
Yes.
Because
You know, Mr. Mayor, we only have a couple options. One's the lot down here by San Jose, the Mission, the church, and then the school coming in on the Alameda. But I live across from there, right? And I don't. It's kind of neat to see. You'd be surprised, like you said, there's 14 to 18 buses a day, and they come from the valley. And I don't want to be one to discourage. I want to work it out, but I don't want to make it hard for these kids to come in. I personally don't mind, the buses there, and they're right outside my door. But just being home during the day, you'd be surprised. This whole street's full. It's kind of neat. There's good and bad, but it's bringing the kids to San Juan Bautista. So whatever we do, let's make it. We work something out where it's equitable and it's fair. Because I personally don't mind it.
There's no question. There's no question that the positive effect of bringing children into the thing is very beneficial to the city. It exposes us. There's probably we have from the school children and the general public upwards of close to 1 million visitors a year into this town, and that's very beneficial for the commerce and stuff. And we're tourist oriented, and we want to continue to promulgate that philosophy.
Yeah, it's really just the one strip from the plaza. Well, actually, it's all of Second down to about where you live.
Yeah, down there. I'm just curious.
That
I'd like to
we'd
go
like
to
to
the
keep
3 or
them from
4
parking
residents.
right there.
And I don't think there's a problem. There may be, but I personally don't have one. I think it's kind of neat to see the kids and ask the bus driver, hey, where's that district at? And they'll say, well, it's outside Yosemite. I mean, they're coming that far. You interact with them, and they're bringing kids over here. So, I'm for working it out, but I don't want to make it so difficult. I want to make it friendly. And if we have to keep it here as a resident on 2nd Street, that's cool.
And the derivative part of that is that those children coming over there, they could convince their parents to say, Mommy, Daddy, let's go over to San Juan. I want to take that and then bring it over. And then if they come and spend the money in our restaurants or stay overnight in the hotels, it's beneficial. So I think from that standpoint, it's...
Give the kids flyers to take home.
We will.
Yeah, my point is just they used to park down there, and then it wasn't an issue, and now they don't anymore.
We'll make the contact and go forward.
Mr. Mayor, I have a speaker card.
Okay.
Chris Mortuano.
Okay.
Good evening. All of the parties involved in that question, the question of who controls parking, whether it's the state park or the mission, are all at the table in our strategic planning committee. So all those people are involved in that process, and it seems to me this would be a perfect point to take up during the strategic planning committee meeting and to approach those guys. So I would encourage you to allow us to do that. And Mr. Moore, I appreciate your comment. I agree with you. I'm curious what the motivation was from the Historic Resources Board, what their concern was, and I think we would start there by discussing their concern first, and then going to the
I would go one step further. There's only 2 or 3 neighbors on the, from San Jose. I'd go, and knock on my neighbors. Do you have a problem with that?
Sure.
And if they don't,
I don't think it has to do with the people along 2nd Street.
Yeah.
When there is that many buses, they end up down on Polk Street and McCullamy and around, and then they try to park on San Jose Avenue between 3rd and 2nd, which is narrow to begin with. That creates a problem, and that's the traffic problem. And I think that's what's happening is sometimes there's so many buses that they spin off, and in one case they were down there on Polk Street, and they did damage to an eave of a building.
Well, that question about where they should be parking or how we should be directing traffic, those are questions that have been taken up in the historic plan that already exists, in the design charrette that was done. Those are all things that the committee has been looking at and is intending to work on and continue with. So anyway,
I believe the design charrette had them down at Abbey Park, did it not?
No, actually, there's a transit little terminal that they suggest.
Yeah.
I'm not sure how practical that was.
Yeah.
Anyway, thank you.
Yeah, I actually misunderstood what the Planning Commission's problem with it was. I thought it was a visual problem of being parked in front of the Mission or in front of the plaza.
I think it's the spin-off where they end up when there's not enough parking on 2nd Street, then they end up in the residential areas.
And they're not familiar with the area.
So,
right.
Mr. Mayor, I have another speaker card from Bob Reed.
Bob? Bob Reed. I think that the more we can do to facilitate the visitation of these buses, the better. I think it's not a matter, I think it's really important to, rather than tell them where they can't go, to create some place where they want to go. Someplace that makes their job easier, makes it easier to get buses in and out, get those kids someplace safely so that, and it's dependable, the same all the time, rather than them having to find a place on the streets that they may not be familiar with. You know, if we can communicate with them better, and the Mission, because the Mission's going to have to, the Mission and the State Park are going to have to give the information out as well. Really, between the three parties, I think we can create something that makes people look forward to coming. Bus drivers happy about being able to come to San Juan.
Thank you.
That's a good point. I think that kind of plays to the fact they picked that soccer field themselves, right? That wasn't something that they were asked to do.
Yeah.
That was a pleasant location for them to park. There's a bathroom there. It's close to downtown.
And it's just like I've seen a lot of bus parking when I go back on the East Coast to visit these historical sites, you know, in Philadelphia and everything. And the bus parks, they have big parking lots, but they line them up so that they pull in and then they can pull out. And that lot down there in the soccer field, if it was lined out and delineated, it just would automatically facilitate where they can come in and then they just moving right off. But I've seen it now where they park underneath and next to the olive trees, and then they park over here, and they can't get around it. So it's a matter of...
There's no direction.
And like Bob says, if we facilitate them to where it's easy to come, they will go.
That's a good point.
Okay, anything else on that? If not, I'll move along to public meetings and committee reports. Joey?
There was no AMBAG meeting this month. We did have a good neighborhood watch meeting last night, which Tony also attended. And I have a question for George. In case 3 of us show up at the neighborhood watch, is that an issue, or are we not really discussing anything that has to do with city business? So
right, you hit it on the head. There's an exception in the Brown Act for community events that are organized by organizations other than the city, and more than a quorum or more may be in attendance as long as they don't discuss among themselves. I can check on that, and I'll get a memo back to you and tell you what the exact wording is.
Okay.
But the way you describe it, it sounds to me like more than 2 there would be okay, as long as you don't discuss among yourselves anything within, as they call it, the subject matter jurisdiction of the city.
Funding for sheriffs or anything along those lines.
Take down the oak tree down. Yeah, right.
Yeah. And I don't know, it was never a city function before, but Trish is putting out the notice for it. I'm opening up City Hall to have it here now, rather than have it down at the school where Rich was putting it on.
This is
the neighborhood watch.
Yeah.
But it is a neighborhood watch meeting. It's not a...
Yeah. Well, let me confirm that for you.
Okay.
The way you describe it, it sounds to me like it's okay, but
Great.
I want to be certain.
And just as what George has said, recently we had the Planning Commission meet with the merchants at Donna Esther's, and because we had more than 3 present, we had to have that as a special meeting because they were talking about a city ordinance and city
Right.
business.
In that case, yeah.
That case.
Yeah, and we would just have to, either one of us would have to get up and walk out, or just make sure not to discuss.
Georgia was on.
Yeah. So anyway, it was a good meeting. I think it's going to flow a little differently now that Rich isn't managing the meeting. We'll have Rich and/or other sheriff's officers or narcotics officers or gang task force as guest speakers. But I think Rich wanted, and the Neighborhood Watch people that were involved really wanted to take it over as a neighborhood watch rather than as something run by the sheriff.
Something structured through them.
Or the deputy, I should say. Let's see. It's still the third Monday of the month, but now it's here instead of at the school. The next meeting will be the 19th of August. We're looking into a Crime Watch webpage in addition to the existing San Juan Bautista Neighborhood Watch Facebook page. I didn't even know there was one because I don't go on Facebook, but there is. Beginning with the September meeting, we hope to have guest speakers from Gang Task Force, Narcotics, Sheriff Darren Thompson if he's got time, etc. This is a forum for all San Juan Bautista residents and surrounding areas to discuss crime-related issues and help neighbors to learn what to watch for and when to call 911 and watch out for suspicious activity.
Andy?
Our meetings were delayed till this Thursday.
Yeah.
Put off fire committee and intergovernment, so.
Okay.
At the LAFCO meeting last month, we adopted the budget for the coming year, and San Juan's share went up about $1,200 to just under $5,500. That's the primary report.
One thing I know, I got a notice, I don't know why I got it, but you got, LAFCO hired a director.
We hired an executive officer because we were contracting with the county and they can no longer do it.
Oh.
So, and that's one of the reasons why our cost went up.
Okay. Did you have a strategic plan?
No, we didn't.
Oh, okay. Yeah, and I had no meetings, so. Okay. No more speaker cards, right? No. All right. Item 4, consent items. Motion to approve, or does anybody want to pull anything?
Actually, 4D.
Okay, you want to pull 4D? Anybody else? Motion to approve A, B, and C?
I'll make a motion that we approve items 4, A, B, and C.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Okay, item 4D.
Okay, I don't want to sound like a Scrooge, but I worked in both public and private industry for a long time, and I never got 13 holidays. I wonder if the 2 floating holidays isn't maybe a bit extra. I mean, 11 is pretty standard. If we cut it back to 1 floating holiday, it would still be 12. And I think that we give our employees who come in late for meetings and stuff comp time, so they get that. I don't know.
I get 13 holidays.
Do you get 13?
Not only that, we close down on Christmas Eve and come back on the day after New Year's.
Because it's the day.
And it doesn't
And they're
go.
paid holidays.
That time is just a break, and it doesn't go against our vacation time.
I get 365.
I get 0.
Yeah, a lot of people don't get any now.
In fact, talk to your boss.
Yeah, well, that's.
I use them.
But even people who aren't self-employed a lot. So I don't know. It's.
Well, you know, like the day after Thanksgiving. So we give them Thanksgiving off. Expect them to come back to work on the day after. Who's going to get anything
I don't at all.
done,
No,
you
I'm
know?
talking about the 2 floating holidays.
But Well, that's also typical.
I get 13.
Yeah, this is 13. If we cut off one of the floating holidays, it would be 12.
What's the cost?
$300.
1 day of salary for all the employees.
You're just talking about Public Works and Trish and Michelle, right?
Michelle, Trish, Matt, I. 3 employees. See,
Well, you guys are on salary.
Well, and they get comp time, so, I mean, I assume we're doing that. I would hope we're doing that.
So now we're back to 3?
I'm fine with it.
4 people? Less out.
There's 3 Public Works employees, and there's 4
That are hourly?
in the office. So, no, paid holidays, they're all getting 7.
I know, but the rest of the staff's on salary.
Yeah, but they're still getting holiday pay. Yeah, it's however you want to look at it. I'm just throwing it out there in
I'd
case.
support it if I thought it was excessive, but I don't think it's excessive. So.
I agree with Rick. I think the employee, they've been working hard. I'm totally happy with everybody. When the city's
It's
running,
not like they're making the big bucks.
No, I'm willing to go with the flow.
I'm good
just
with it.
throwing it out there because it's.
No, I'm good with it.
I never got that many holidays. He
No.
doesn't get any at all. Okay.
I'm good with it.
All right. Good.
All right, now, I need a motion to either approve or deny
Motion to approve.
4D.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay.
There you go.
Motion carried.
2013-22.
Okay, moving on. Action items. 5A, consider proposal to increase community hall user fees for nonprofits.
Mr. Mayor, members of the council, this is a continuation of our discussion we had last month about the use of the community hall, and I asked Michelle and Trish to kind of put together a policy of what they recommended. We received several people inquiring as to the fees and their concern. They felt that some of the $25 per usage day was a little bit tough, particularly when we require a $200 non-refundable cleaning deposit up front, for them, for the stuff. And so there could be a combination of different values that we could have there, and it depends on the type, the continual use. If it's a one-time or once a month thing, it could be the $25 per use. But if it occurs every week, and if they had to put up $200 non-refundable, and then every week
plus another $100
of there would be another $100 a month, or about $1,200 a year. So then, in some organizations, it would reflect about $1,400 to $1,500 a year. So, I think there's some people in the audience that would like to speak to that.
I have one speaker card.
Mm-hmm.
When you're ready.
We made the cleaning deposit non-refundable?
Non-refundable cleaning deposit, yeah. For the continual users. That,
Okay. Well, we'll take comments from the public now.
This is a speaker card from Pauline Valdivia.
Good evening, everybody. Mayor Roach, council members and staff. I'm sorry, Raj, it's hard for me to hear from way back there, but I'm just here for Hoviness, the JDA Senior Services. As some of you may know, we've been providing, agency's been providing services for the elderly in San Benito County for over 38 years, and San Juan has always been a part of that. I don't remember the last time I came before the city council. It was way back. I think I'd been here before the late 70s when I asked permission to use the facility at the time. But anyway, the facility has gone through different renovations, and I remember before it was renovated, we were asked to pay $25 a month for utilities. At that time, we were using it 5 days a week. Right now, we're using it 1 day a week on Thursdays. And then we moved to a church because it was going to be renovated, because we were able to access some funding from the Bond Act, Senior Bond Act of '89. I worked with the city of San Juan and also the city of Hollister to get some of those funds to renovate the facility. That's why we had that water. If any of you remember that wall that was there, that's why it was put there, because the heater that we had couldn't heat the area where the seniors would have lunch. Then after the city acquired a grant, so then we moved back to the mission for a while it was renovated, and then when we came back, beautiful facility, it's really nice. We agreed to pay $200 a year of for maintenance, which was unreimbursable. And the last month we paid, I think, was in March of 2012, and I understand we're going to be getting an invoice so we can keep up the payments. And according to the memo, it looks like you want to charge $25 per use. For us, it would be a hardship. See, the seniors are there only once a week. They're there maybe at the most 2 hours. They come in close to 12, have their lunch, and then play bingo and then leave. We don't use the facility we don't use the kitchen for cooking because we pack the foods in Hollister and it's sent over here. I think Marcy, the site manager, is here with me today. The only thing they use is the sink to wash the utensils afterwards. You know, the forks and spoons and all that. So I was just going to propose to you that we could afford to pay $25 a month for the using the facility, for the utilities or whatever, for 1 day a week, and then except holidays. If a holiday falls on Thursday, we're not there, but we'll still continue to pay. And of course, we continue to pay the $200 of maintenance for the maintenance part of it. I don't know if you all have any questions. There's a lot of history, but I don't want to take too much time, working with the city of San Juan to make sure we provide services for the elderly. And we have a group of about 20 people that meet there every day. Every Thursday. I'm sorry.
You have how many? How many people?
About 20.
20?
I'm sorry, I can hear you. Oh, we have for the center, we have about maybe 25 registered, 25, but we are serving about 20 meals every Thursday, once a week on Thursday.
Thank you.
The seniors, we met with the seniors before we cut it down because we couldn't afford to keep it open every day because the group was too small and I couldn't afford, lack of funding, etc. So the seniors in San Juan decided to meet every Thursday to have their lunch. And it's, they meet there every Thursday and have lunch, and they also have nutrition education and other services, and then they play the famous bingo. So that's one of their favorite activities they have. So.
Okay. Any questions for Pauline? Okay, Pauline.
So Pauline is saying that the 200 a year, you're saying the 200 a year is okay?
Yeah, we've been paying $200 a year for the, like they have to sweep or whatever, but the seniors don't really make a mess, because we take everything out of there, and we do that every year. We've been doing that every year, and we haven't gotten a statement, but I understand this. We're going to be getting a statement for this next year. We paid it. The last one we paid was in March of last year.
Yeah. So what Pauline is proposing, that they're willing to pay the $200 cleaning deposit, non-refundable, and then $25 per month, which translates into $300 a year, so that their total expenditure would be approximately $500 a year.
Hey, Roger, is there any way we can go? It might be a loose end, case by case. I mean,
yes.
I just to see when somebody comes to us or you can evaluate the wear and tear, how many days they're going to use it per month.
A level of use.
Yeah, a level of use. I find it hard to charge people because I go over to Hollister. My daughter's in 4-H, and they meet once a month, and I don't think they they go upstairs. My son goes to, he's a Boy Scout, he goes to the Aromas Grange. What they do is mow the grass every 6 weeks at the Aromas Grange. But I know people can't, it's tough. I don't know if we can work something out as a council and bring each individual leader in and say, hey, here's where we're at. Can you guys help us out? Because maybe somebody can help us out. Maybe,
how many nonprofits do we have?
You know.
I think the letters went out to about probably maybe 6. It seems like the Boy Scouts are now meeting in the community hall. Weren't they meeting in the?
I think they had a special event.
Oh.
You know what I mean, like a ceremonial
Derby.
No, like maybe some sort of crossover or whatever. They were all.
I thought Michelle said that they were.
Okay, well.
Having a monthly.
I guess I'll just reiterate. I think we should take it case by case if we can and evaluate each club's potential solvency to help us out. And then I think we're going to drive some people away. And
Maybe
I
like
think,
a 3-tier level of
well,
use.
I think leave it up to the staff, and then if they.
Well,
I know it's an open end.
There's the direct cost, the maintenance and cleaning and conditions, and then there's the wear and tear on the floor, and then there's the wear and tear of the equipment, the tables and the chairs, and then there's the electricity and the lighting and the heating, that is ongoing. So you get all those elements. It's
You want to try to be as close to uniform as possible.
I know.
Maybe being close to uniform means that there are multiplicity of factors you have to take into
Right.
consideration.
Yeah.
Number of people, are they going to use the kitchen? Are they going to? How long are they going to be there? How many people are going to be there? That kind of thing.
Right.
And then I'm not saying that that's an exact science, but those things can be taken into consideration. Like in her case, maybe you could say rather than 25 a month, something like $750 a meeting or something like that. If they otherwise qualify as a low impact user, something like
Right.
that. Now I hate to put staff to a whole bunch of work, but you should try to be as uniform as you possibly can, rather than negotiate at council meetings about what exceptions you're going to make and that sort of thing. It is a proprietary function. It's not really a governmental function. You have a piece of property, you're basically leasing or you're basically renting it out for a fee. So you get a little more latitude in determining how to charge in town, out of town, that kind of stuff. But still, there should be some consistency and uniformity in the way you charge.
Well, can I ask you a question? And I'm going from the Betts building. The kids that use it. Does the city do they charge like?
The British building, yes, they do.
No, but like 4-H and all that. Do they pay?
Yeah.
They do.
They charge like the nonprofits, you mean?
Yeah, the nonprofits.
Oh yeah, they charge a fee, and then if you're going to use it for fundraising, it's the same as everybody else. The only ones I think I don't charge are the veterans.
The veterans?
The veterans, because they're housed there, and
Okay.
we're looking at turning over the building to them so they can
Okay.
take care of it and oversee it at the time. So, but they do charge. Anybody who uses it, including nonprofits. I've done fundraisers there, and I have to pay for the rent,
Okay.
for the tables and chairs and all that. I was going to ask Charlie to also, just for, we bought the tables that we use. Those are ours. We paid for those, and they're stored in the storage. And we also have a storage where we keep all our little things that we have to keep locked up, like our silverware, etc., to keep the place up. Also, we also pay for liability insurance for the facility through our insurance carrier. The whole place is covered, with general liability insurance. I just wanted to let you know.
Pauline, where do you have your lunches in Hollister?
Excuse me?
Where do you have your lunches in Hollister?
The lunches is at the Hollister Community Center.
Okay. Do they charge you?
No.
They don't charge you anything?
No, because we also, when we access it's the money from the Senior Bond Act money to renovate, to expand the facility where we're housed. We're way in the back where there used to be a patio, and it's called the Senior Annex. One of the conditions that as long as we were there, they couldn't charge us the rent because they were able to access those funds at the time. And the same thing here with community center, but it's been a long time. That was about, maybe when we got it done was in the 90s, early 90s. It's been a while, so.
In general, the community center charges over there, though. They just
Pardon
don't, in general, the community center in Hollister charges
Oh, yeah, if
nonprofits.
anybody
They
wants
just
to use
don't
the
charge
hall-
you
the
because of a
facility
special
to-
arrangement.
To have a party or whatever, they charge. They have a scale
Yeah.
where they charge. I don't use it for, I just use it in the day. It's just for day use.
Do you understand that one of our issues is energy use?
Yes, I
When
understand.
the seniors are using it in the winter, it costs us a tremendous amount of money. That heater is not cheap to run,
No, I know.
and you're heating a whole big building. And that $25 a month for using it 4 or 5 times a month isn't going to defray that cost very much. And that's one of the issues besides the floor and the bathrooms and that sort of
And the
thing,
maintenance-
which you know what you're paying does help to defray. But I've looked at the energy bills, and we pay a lot to keep that building running when there's nobody paying to use it, because we don't have any parties going on or anybody to defray the costs.
And then, like, we
and
used
that's
to-
an issue.
No, I'm sorry.
No, I'm done.
No, I'm sorry. Yeah, we use, the heaters use more in the wintertime. Of course, in the summertime, it's nice, but yes, I understand the energy cost is really expensive, but we're there only for a couple of hours, so I don't know how you would prorate that in terms of our usage versus somebody being there, you know, for 5 or 6 hours, like on a Saturday or whatever. I don't know how you would do that, but I understand what you're saying.
But most of the nonprofits don't use it for very long. And there are periods of time, especially in the winter, when nobody's using it except nonprofits, and we still have those high energy bills to pay. So that's part of our issue, why we're looking at this.
Okay, thank you, Pauline.
Okay, any more questions? No? Okay, thank you.
There might be some other people in the audience.
Are there other speaker cards?
I have no other speaker card.
I guess I'll start it off with, my problem is, it's a community center. And we did get a lot of money to renovate it. We got it from the county, actually. And, but it's kind of like we're supposed to have a park and recreation fund, which we don't, you know. We used to get money, we used to get grants from the state for parks and for taking care of the ball field and things like that. And I mean, I'd love to just make it free, especially for the senior lunches, you know, but we got to figure out a way. And I don't know. I don't know the answer. I just.
I can do a cost analysis of the various tasks: toilet paper, cleaning, wear and tear of the floor, lighting, electricity, and we can do this, and then we'll bring it back to you.
Yeah,
I think you're right. Is that our intent is to keep it somewhat revenue neutral, but yet available to our residents as well as San Bernardino County residents, because the county helped pay for it, but still maintain some type of resemblance where we're building up a certain fund that we're going to need to recondition the floor, replace some of the tables and chairs that wear out, maintain the steps and stuff like that. There's applied maintenance of the thing, and then the building's not going to last forever.
I thoroughly agree. It's just that I know a lot of the seniors really look forward to. They go and they get a good lunch, you know. Whereas if they were sitting home by themselves, they're not going to. And they get a social interaction. It's good for them. I mean, but I'm just trying to figure out how we can afford it.
How long do their lunches last?
A couple hours.
Couple hours.
So we're looking at about 2 hours of maybe heater time. and light time, we could probably figure out what the thermal and electricity is
Well,
on that.
I think her problem too is she doesn't have a whole lot of money to spend.
No.
And, I mean, you know, $25 a week would be great, but I don't think she can afford it. And, you know, with the service that they provide everybody, and but then again, I don't know if the city can afford it either.
Well, let's go back to the drawing board and do some analysis. And, you know, we want to be fair. We have received over the last year and a half, because of the recession, it used to be the private parties would take it, and that would generate enough money to where we could balance off our maintenance and stuff. But that's kind of waned the last couple of years, and we have not received the private parties that are using it that have to pay. I think the use is $500. So I think as the economy changes, I think that's going to change.
Could we look at advertising it in the Star or something like that, or is that cost prohibitive to try to bring in more paying customers?
Yeah, that's something that we could pay.
You know, I'm not a website person, but
website,
you know, I've walked over there when some of these companies come in and set up, and I often ask Michelle, and she offered to give me the camera, take all these photographs with the permission of the proprietor, and then build it up to links, you know, halls in San Benito County. I think that might be our avenue if we can turn 10 or 15 more parties a year. Because I think Friday and Saturday they were over there. That was used
3 days.
Yeah, but it was cool. But I think if we can generate some sort of website, you know, I mean, links to party, and just get it out there, I think we could maybe solve this problem and you know, offset some of the costs, because it doesn't get used like it should. But I've walked over there, and they bring in professional companies, and sometimes I tell Michelle, I go, too bad we couldn't take a camera, you know, and then download that, and then, you know, link it to, you know, somehow, and then people would, you know, get it out there. But it's just if we could get it occupied, maybe, you know, another 12 times a year or something, maybe it would offset us from charging.
Yeah. And also, if we're going to charge a little bit for cleaning deposit and make it non-refundable, I don't think we can do that without making it partially refundable. Because if you make it completely non-refundable, there's no incentive for them to clean it themselves. So if we do go with a fee like that, I would like to have a part of it is non-refundable for maintenance or whatever, and then the other part is a real cleaning deposit that you can get back if you clean. I don't know, I just think it gives more incentive to clean it up yourselves.
Maybe we could get together with, you say there's just a half a dozen nonprofits.
Yes, that.
Maybe we can get together with them and say, hey, okay, guys, you got to clean the bathrooms. You got to designate one person or whatever. Somebody's got to clean these bathrooms. We can't afford to send the people in here. And then as far as the PG&E bill goes, I don't know. It's just, but again, I'm sitting here and thinking, it's an asset to the community. I don't know, there's only that, Casa Maria, and the VFW for facility, party facility. I don't know how Casa Maria is doing. I don't think the VFW is getting very much. So maybe we should.
I'd like to see the impact report. You know.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking. If we just
start
table this, leave it as it is right now, and then really crunch the numbers. And
Mr. Mayor, if you have a closed public comment, I have a speaker card on this item. A late-breaking speaker card.
If it's Chris and his wife brought the cookies, he can come.
Thank you very much. I appreciate that. This subject's come up again at the Strategic Planning Committee. I my wife and I rented the hall in December ourselves, and I think we've all been in there and recognized that the biggest challenge in using the space is the acoustics. It's been addressed by Roger in the capital expenditure plan for the city, 3 or 5 year plan. I would suggest that this, as Jolene mentioned, could probably be taken care of on the income side rather than the expense side, but it's going to require some investment on the city's part initially. But I think the property becomes much more marketable if it has the improvements that Roger's outlined, including tables, additional tables, chairs, and the acoustics addressed. I think that $20,000 requires, a $20,000 expenditure requires approximately 40 additional rentals, and over a 2-year period, I don't think that's difficult to achieve at all.
Good point.
Okay. Anything else, or you want to table this until?
Do all of the nonprofits pay this non-refundable $200? That's the first time I've heard about that.
Yes, yes they have. I mean, we're all billed this week for a second year of it. It's only
Okay.
been a couple of years.
Okay, so they are paying $200 a year for use, no matter how many times they use it. It's a flat fee.
When that was set up, my understanding was that it would be, we would keep the 200, and as there was wear and tear, maintenance had to go in and use it, we would pull from that, and then we would rebuild to bring that 200 back up.
But instead you're billing every year for $200. And that doesn't seem to be a problem for the nonprofits to do that much. Yeah. Let's leave it and go for further study, like you guys said. I'm willing for that.
Okay.
Okay.
I didn't realize that they were paying $200 a year. I thought that was refundable.
Okay. Item 5B, consider selection of CMAP representative.
Mayor and Council, I did not receive any more bites to my notice as far as anybody interested in being on a CMAP representative, other than Mr. Strobel.
What's the, so that, we
That
just
is
got the one,
That's just the one. Seems very interested, very qualified.
What's the pleasure of the council? I don't know if everybody read this letter, but it seems like he really wants the job.
Yeah.
Yeah. I would like to make a motion to appoint Mr. Stobel.
Oh, excuse me, Maggie said that she is interested as well. I don't know if you want to wait to see hers. I don't recall receiving anything. But you know.
Is she talking about the senior thing or this?
This.
The CMAP.
Should we wait till
I'll second Rick's motion.
Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Appoint Mr. Stroll.
Oh, public.
Is there public comment?
Do we have a comment?
Oh,
Come on.
Oh, you didn't do a speaker
Oh,
card.
sorry.
Mr. Reed would like to make a comment.
We can't let him jump in just any time he feels like it.
Yeah, but he can put it in his
put
report.
it in the paper.
Yeah.
Well, I think Mr. Strobel is a great person and would do a good job. I am concerned that he's not a resident of the city.
His address is,
Yeah,
These are
his address
Rancho
is right
areas,
here.
Rancho Larios.
Says San Juan Batista.
but he's in the unincorporated area.
Right, his mailing address may be, he may pick up mail here, but I think that that's a consideration as someone who also doesn't live in the city.
But we'd let you run for city council. You can use my address.
Thank you. And also, I would say that as a former CMAP employee and board member, I think that there has not been the kind of linkage between the city and CMAP that would be helpful. There's never been a CMAP report other than from the director of CMAP. So the board member never has reported to the city council about what's happening. There were huge changes in CMAP in that they moved to Christopher High School, which and now they are taking on the management of Santa Cruz television, community TV. So I think it's really important that San Benito County has strong representation on that board to make sure that our involvement, that CMAP's involvement in San Benito County remains strong.
Okay. There was no requirement that they had to be a resident in San Juan, was there?
I don't know.
I think I got the recommendation about Mr. Stoverall from Kathy Bisbee, who's the director.
Well,
She didn't have a problem.
I mean, when you posted, and this is the only response
That's how
you
I
got.
posted it though.
Yeah.
Because Bob said at the last meeting that he would hope that it would be
Yeah, I do remember that.
Well-
But isn't it better to have somebody representing the area than nobody at all? Because we didn't get any other.
Well, we had a
actually, we
motion.
got
in-
one late one.
Put him as an intern?
We got one late one.
and require a report every meeting.
Yeah, I mean, I didn't even know Mr. Candelaria was on our representative.
Maybe it's up to us to communicate with them more. And I mean, there's a lot of people that live in the surrounding area who are awfully involved in San Juan. There's breakfast gang that comes over from
Sit down.
Rancho Larios all the time.
Okay. I believe we had a motion in.
Yeah,
and a
we
vote.
did. We actually.
Okay, I mean, so there's no real further discussion. Okay, so Mr. Stoll was appointed our CMAP representative. Okay.
I guess I jumped the gun on that one. Sorry. Well, Rick made the motion.
Item C, consider request by senior council for a representative.
Did we notice this? Or is this the first time it's coming up? Isn't this the thing that Yvonne Novak was telling us was important?
Trish? Trish, has this been noticed, the senior one?
I contacted the director, tried to contact him and did not receive anything back. I think, as I said, with Yvonne Novak leaving, I mean, if she was on one of the boards that they have, there's no longer a San Juan Bautista representative. I don't know if you want to move forward with this or why it's really the city's responsibility to select as well. Just putting the advertisement, a vacancy out there and encouraging somebody in the community to become a member of this agency board, I think is.
That's what we did last.
That's what we did.
Isn't that what we did last month, and we didn't get any applicants?
Yes, I've had it listed for
You did have this posted?
I put up the letter. Is it included there? I have posted that.
Okay.
And there, so far there's been no
Nothing.
response?
No.
So do we need to appoint somebody, or do we have to just wait for a volunteer?
It's up to you, how you want to continue with this. Again, I have only been able to speak to the director the one time before I presented this, and when Mrs. Novak stood up here and said that she was already on the board, I wanted some clarification on that, because if there's no San Juan people on the board, then she's on the board. It was
But now she's
contrary.
gone or
And
something,
now she's
right?
gone, so it doesn't appear that there is a San Juan person.
Let's give it another month and
I
let's
guess
maybe
the other
contact.
thing we should do is advise people what it involves.
Okay.
This letter doesn't really say, you know, have
Right.
a one meeting a month or a week or whatever.
I've got so many things posted. I'm trying to get this one clarified, not involved with the CMAP one, which I did have.
Right.
Okay. And that was more specific as far as what was
Yeah.
that would entail.
Okay.
Okay. I can put a better posting up and
Okay.
talk to the director.
Okay.
All right, thank you.
Thank you. All right. Item 6, discussion items. A, decrease water sewer rates for multifamily residents.
Yes, Mr. Mayor, members of the council, I've been contacted by a number of apartment companies and complexes, and they still would like us to consider a decrease in the sewer rates for the apartment complex. And you recall, back in November, I submitted a report, and it highlighted the apartments as well as the small businesses with limited sewer. The council accepted the small businesses with limited sewer facilities and employees, and they enacted an ordinance, and that went into effect. So far, we've only had one application this year, and so the hit or the impact to our revenues is much less than anticipated. However, the apartment complexes, they've still requested that they would like some type of adjustment based on the typical usage of an apartment complex. And the November report that I did back in 2012 kind of highlights the relationship of the amount of fixture units versus the fixture units of a typical apartment, you know, 18 versus 11 and a half, and then ratioed down, and it was about approximately a 63% of the nominal rate of effluent discharge. And this translates into the analysis that I did, where we would be reducing the rate of multiples from the $74 down to $59.36. So it's for your consideration and consideration of how you'd want to approach this. This year's analysis, I applied the current rate that we were doing to where we increased our sewer rates from $74.37 up to $75.63. You know, so there's a definite relationship of the increase that has taken place. So the consideration for the council here is to take a look and see, do you want to approach this from the standpoint of a relationship of what they're discharging into the sewer system, or keep it the same?
You have in here, Roger, that the normal density of a single-family residential home is 3.5 persons. Do we know what the density is for the average apartment?
We don't have a statistic on that. Generally, what we do is we run about, when we do our analysis of environmental review, we use 2 as a general rule for apartments.
Because see, what I'm thinking is that the discharge is based on the number of people, not the number of sinks and toilets.
Yeah.
And I think we ought to relate it to that. Because I think a lot of these apartment owners are probably paying utilities for their people, and that's why they're trying to get a reduction. But maybe there's not a reduction of discharge, because oftentimes people live in apartments because they can't afford a house, but that doesn't mean there's any fewer of them. And then we're putting the debt service equally against everybody. And maybe that should be related to the number of people too.
Yeah.
I mean, I have 2 people in my unit, you know, which is under the average, and it's still the same.
Yeah, I just think that
I think everybody here only has 2 in their unit. You have,
well, I only have 2 in my house, so
Yeah.
you know,
All of us.
maybe I should get a reduction based on
Oh,
the number
Andy's
of
got
people. You know, I mean, I just think maybe we ought to take another look at this and base it on people instead of
Okay.
fixture units.
Mr.
We
Mayor?
can, Matt and I can go back and then we can research the typical average apartment density users versus the residential, and then do a ratio of that. And we have the fixture units as well as the density. And
Mr. Mayor?
yeah.
I really wish you wouldn't spend any more time on it at all, because I don't think that apartments use any less water than many of the residents in San Juan. I own a second home. There's 2 people living in it. There's no dishwasher. There's 1 toilet. There's no reason to think that that house uses any more water than an apartment in the same situation, and the apartment probably has a dishwasher. And there's a lot of houses just like that. And my own home, even though it's a larger home, there's only 2 of us living in it. Unless you base it on the amount of water they're using, and unless they're using significantly less water, I'm opposed to it. I use 4,000 units a month. So does my rental. Unless they're using 2,000 a month, I don't see the difference. And I don't think they are.
Yeah, you're
I'm
probably
guessing,
right.
but I don't think they are.
Probably the most equitable way is to relate it to the amount of water going through a meter.
Yeah. Yeah, and if there are both houses and apartments who are using 2,000 units a month, for instance, they probably should be getting a break. But I don't think most of them are. And I think the ones who are you're going to find that it's a elderly person living in a little house all by themselves and without a lot of dishwashers and that sort of stuff going. That's just my opinion.
And the discharge is going to be about the same for a house, because any additional water is going to be used for vegetation. And
Yes.
It's not going to go through it.
It's not going to go through the sewer. Thank you.
Can I comment?
Yes.
You know, Roger, I want to watch what we're doing here. I kind of agree with Jolene. We actually eliminated the septic disposal trucks. We took a little bit of a hit there. We went to the local businesses, which were justified to give them a break. But I don't know if we should go down that avenue right now, you know, with our pellet softener and, you know, and what we're facing. Start giving, you know, because of I don't want the single-family residents to feel that, hey, how come we're not getting a break? Wait a minute, I only have 1. You know, who knows? I may have 2 people living in a house. I guess long story short, I personally think that we should just hold off on this and keep everything status quo. This is my opinion. You know, until some stuff's completed and you know some of these projects are wrapped up that we're you know going to get involved with.
That's fine. Yeah, right.
If we were
I think from the standpoint is every rate structure should be reasonable and proportional to the use, and that's what we try to strive for. And that's one of the toughest things, is to develop a rate structure that is proportional to the amount of use that's being supplied or serviced or used.
Sounds to me like it'd be a pretty complicated
Yes.
program to base it on water usage. You'd have to computerize it, and every bill would be, every month would be different. And
For some people, yeah, it would.
and it's like me. I have a duplex, and I got a horrendous bill last month, but it was because they were watering the lawns, and you know. But typically, per unit, there's just 2 in my house. Per unit, it's about the same. It runs about the same.
How we approach the winter to the summer rates is we look at the winter rates, and where people don't irrigate their lawns, and that's basically the basis for the use of who operates out of that house, and how many toilets they flush, and how many bathrooms they operate in. That's our basis, and then we see that during the summer there's an increase because it's directly related to the irrigation and landscaping.
Well, seems to be the consent. It's just discussion, but the consensus, leave it alone.
Yeah. I believe so, Mr. Mayor. I think that even if we get this pellet software up and running, we give a decrease, we're going to have to come back and get an increase. So I think we just ought to hold tight, personally.
I think we have to prepare ourselves for that when we determine how much that softener is going to cost us to run. So, okay. Discussion of general plan update. And I understand Mr.
I got Matt here, and he's prepared the staff report, and just to kind of give you a quick, broad overview, as you recall, our current general plan was developed years ago, and it will terminate or expire at 2015, and we're at 2013. That's a couple of years away, and normally you would try to start to gear up and come up with a strategy or a plan to bring the general plan up to date. Matt's kind of researched it, and he has a report here.
Mr. Mayor, members of the council, as Roger said, our general plan is going to be expiring, and so the state requires that we have to update it every so often, so many years. The general plan, for people that aren't familiar with it, it's the guiding document of the city that kind of all other plans feed off of. So this is something that we want to get up to date, and then generally you're projecting out about 20 years, and so this next plan would go out to 2035, and so with this update, we're looking at kind of what those costs might entail to do this. There's kind of several different ways it can be done. The Office of Planning and Research, they kind of indicate that counties spend about $845,000 to do this plan. For cities, they estimate about $255,000, but these estimates are from about 10 years ago, and now there's more requirements, different environmental and things like that need to be produced. Since California is expanding, the population is getting close to 50 million. Coming out soon are going to be the new general plan guidelines for 2013, and those will include kind of more requirements that the city will have to meet and represent in our plan. Some of those being greenhouse gas emissions, renewable energy, infill development, public health, and regional planning. And so what we're looking for from you council this evening is kind of some direction of how we might go about attacking and completing this general plan update. We are kind of looking for direction, if we are to hire a consultant. One of the things I was looking into, being a graduate of Cal Poly San Luis Obispo in the planning department there, as students, we kind of get into these hands-on situations where we go and help communities, and there's kind of a smaller price tag, and we went to the city of Delano and put together a specific plan, and that's kind of a way that you can incorporate some help at kind of a lower cost, kind of giving students experience. And so I kind of reached out to the department and the professors there and got some ideas of what those costs may be, as well as seeing if they could be part of general plan update in congruence with the EIR that's attached with that. So that was kind of one of the things we were kind of looking at, as well as internships and different things, kind of pulling these different researches, different people that can help, contract planners, kind of a mix to get the kind of lowest cost as we can to get this requirement fulfilled. So we're looking for a direction tonight of what you guys think may be the best approach. And I don't know if Roger, you'd like to add anything else?
No, I think you've kind of covered it. The current general plan, our current general plan is not inadequate. Its function's good. It's just that the state maintains is that we have to upgrade it. And I think that the document itself is a good document. It just has to be massaged, augmented, and expanded to meet these new guidelines, and then develop a thing and get the public participation of this community. This community always gets involved and participates, and then we can meet these new criteria that the OPR is setting into place in the Housing Development Division, and then utilize a combination of consultants, interns, students to keep this cost down. I dread the day when I have to come to you and says, I think that the general plan is going to cost us $500,000. We really don't have that money.
And I called the city of Capitola and spoke to the planning director there, and they just recently gone through the process of updating their general plan along with the zoning ordinance and climate action plan and EIRs, but they ended up spending about 3.5 years doing this process, using about 1.5 persons of staff time dedicated towards that effort, as well as they ended up spending about $860,000. And given that city of Capitola is pretty small, and San Juan is even smaller, they have a tourist element, and they have a lot of things going on, the same as city of San Juan Bautista. And so, I mean, that's just an idea of what those costs can be.
You said 800?
860,000, and that's just kind of estimate.
Going to have to float another bond issue or something. God. Did you get any idea, Matt, from school?
Yeah, so I kind of I was shooting emails out to the director. They're at Cal Poly, the City and Regional Planning Department. She was on vacation, but she was able to get back to me. A lot of the estimate that they put together is on distance, basically reimbursing students and staff driving to the location. One example, they worked with the city of Hayward for 2 quarters, which is basically 6 months, and it was about $20,000. Clear Lake was it was high 30s. Let's see, city of Delano, the project I worked on, was 20 to 25,000. So basically, there's that range of 10 to high 30s, and that's kind of more so, I would say, based on distance. And so, Cal Poly is like 150 miles from here, and so it's kind of shorter than some of the places I had listed, Hayward and Clear Lake and Delano even. And so that was kind of something Roger and I were looking at. Could be a viable option.
And that's for 2 quarters worth of work,
And
basically?
and they're flexible. It could be 1 quarter, it could be 2, depending on what our needs and what we can kind of work out with our scope of work, what would be needed. And so that price would change whatever.
Does the
scope of work.
whole class jump in on this?
Yeah,
or-
so they have, the class that I had, it was a class of about 30 students, and what we did was just kind of broke up, certain parts of a document and worked on it as a whole, including those kind of outreach milestones. So, we'd go meet up with the community, and we'd have our specific goals for that one milestone, and so we'd meet that, get their input, and then come back with the next phase. And so it's kind of broken up into phases. So in this way, if we were to get Cal Poly students on board, we would actually be able to keep a pretty good pace with this thing and not detract and have a 3-year or more plan update, which there's plenty of other things that's going on in Roger's office that will still need to be worked on.
Coupled with the other responsibility of upgrading is the key element is citizen participation.
Yeah.
And you have to get involved, the citizens, all the groups of all the communities. You got to be very aggressive to get them involved. You got to get a general plan committee, just like we have a strategic plan committee, and get them to work on it. The interns, students, the staff work with them to develop the stuff, and we have a good document. We just have to embellish it, to augment it, and bring it up to speed, and then add these new provisions. And but the key to it is that we've aggressively got to get a citizen participation, volunteers, just like the strategic plan, and get them actively pursuing it, because they're going to form it, and it has to come from the ground up, from the community.
Isn't this, we did this back in the 80s, right?
Mm-hmm.
I vaguely remember
98.
being on
98.
98.
No, but before that, we did one.
Oh, before that, in the 80s, yeah, there was an earlier one than that.
Because I remember, as part of the planning commission, I remember myself and Chalmer Raymer and some of, we just walked around town and said, oh, this would be nice here, or whatever, type of thing. And I don't remember who put it all together, but
The one in 98 was done by
RBF.
Yeah, RBF.
Big firm.
but how much did that cost?
A lot.
I thought I heard 60,000 for the historic plan, but I don't know how much the general plan cost.
Well,
I don't know.
RBF did the historic plan too,
Just,
right?
just
Yeah,
when you get
they did
your
both.
nose above water, here comes something else, man.
Oh. Tony, I have a couple
like
of
that
game.
questions. I mean, Mr. Mayor.
Yes.
Okay, first off, we're talking about a class, right? Because here it says a student on the report will work with the city. Oh, actually, it says a student studio will work.
Yeah.
Is that's
Yeah,
a class?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
It's a studio class, so that's what they call it.
Okay.
The studio is kind of where you have desks and
Like I had labs in my major.
Right.
You have studios.
yeah, it's basically the same thing.
Okay.
Sorry, guys.
Gotta go.
If you have to go, it's okay. And then the other thing is, I asked you a little bit about the historic San Juan Bautista plan and how that played into it, and you said that the general plan is the overall document,
Yes.
and that this is gets into more specifics, and you can use it because it's a little newer than the.
So you were referring to the historical resource.
Yeah, the historic San Juan Bautista
Right.
plan.
So yeah, what we had talked about was that maybe that plan was produced in 2002.
2002.
And current general plan is in '98, and so, what we would reflect in this update is probably information that was gathered at that time to bring this historical preservation element kind of up to speed. So, all that information was produced, which is really good information. In the update, we'd want to bring that information in here because this is kind of the one-stop shop. Like this is where you basically guide from. So in the update, when you brought in that history information and everyone was happy with that element, then if there was something else coming down the road, you would refer here, and it wouldn't be just copying that whole plan and putting it in here, but just that those goals and objectives and policies would be reflected here, and made consistent.
Does it make it harder or easier to have a document like that to work off of?
It certainly makes it easier because we have a lot of background. Your current general plan has a land use element, a transportation element, a housing element, which we've done and it's been reviewed, an open space and conservation, safety element, public service element, community design element, and then a historical preservation element. And we'll probably have to add some of the newer things,
There's
sustainable community and greenhouse gas.
There's 7 mandatory elements, which basically Roger just alluded to, but there's those few items that will need to be addressed, and they kind of incorporate in those specific elements that Roger just read. So, for an example, let's say transportation. With transportation, there's going to be different things for renewable energy, like focusing on making electrical car charging stations. So that's kind of focusing on that as an example.
Circulation is the same thing as transportation in the required element?
The mandatory element.
Yeah, okay.
So the purpose of this discussion was just to kind of bring the council up to speed and show you what's on the horizon. Matt and I are going to go back and do a little bit more research and detail, and then I think we'll come back with our recommendation is to, one, solicit to develop a general plan advisory committee, to get people who are interested, get that going. We will probably develop some contacts with Cal Poly and develop that, and then maybe some consultants that can do the graphics and pull together the stuff, and then maybe give some type of a tentative budget.
Is there any grant money available for something like this?
Generally, as a rule of thumb, the community housing development do not offer a grant for this. They have supplemental or, I'm going to say, other grants that are for planning purposes to look at your sustainable community and stuff, but nothing to a grant to say, hey, we got a grant for your general plan.
Because the reason I ask that is it's hard to imagine that Capitola could come up with $800,000 to pay for, a state requirement.
Beach cities get lots of money.
Huh?
What's the
Beach cities
penalty?
They don't get that kind of money. I don't think so.
Oh, I don't know.
Probably a letter.
A lot of tourists.
They get a lot.
Taxable sales.
Yeah, but still, I mean, that's a ridiculous amount of money. And
Well, you divide 1.5 people by how many months they worked on it, and what are they making per hour? Come on, what are the costs here? It's labor. It's all labor. You're not spending that much on typing or paper.
And don't forget, Capitola was a little bit different. It's not just a general plan, but they did a zoning. They did the zoning, and then what else they did?
All I'm saying.
They did a zoning ordinance update, climate action plan, and then EIRs kind of.
And then the environmental impact.
It just.
And a lot of those things are templates in some planner's computer, and they just plug in some facts and figures, and the city name and spit it out. Come on. We got to do it on the cheap.
Oh, definitely. I mean, you know.
The only Achilles heel to this whole process is that you do a general plan and then you go out and circulate it, and you have to do an environmental impact report to support your approval of that plan. And then in the environmental impact report, you get all the comments and they start nitpicking and stuff, and you can get trapped into just the California Environmental Quality Act. It'll probably cost more than the general plan.
It's kind of hard to believe
And
that
Monterey
15
ended
years
up
and we
with that.
still don't have a housing element.
No, I think we had one. It has to be updated every 5 years. And
Well,
that's what we're working
state
on
kicked
now.
it back with that growth control thing.
Yeah.
Still haven't got it.
So if we get one done by 2015, it'll be good till 2035? Is that? No.
Generally, the general plan will be, there'll probably be the housing element will come back to rear its head in about 215 to 220.
Oh.
Okay.
I mean, 220, I think, or 225.
220?
You know, I mean, like Rick has said, the housing element has to be updated more periodically than the general plan.
Where is our housing element?
Every 2 years?
It's being in Sacramento.
It's at
being
Sacramento.
reviewed, yeah.
If that were certified, could we get a CDBG grant
That still would
to
open
pay
us up.
for the general plan? Do
I
they
would think
cover
those would
that?
be used for housing.
Oh, it's more housing.
The
Housing, yeah.
community block
Yeah.
grant.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Well,
So you'll report back to us?
another thing on your plate. Give it to
He's got broad shoulders.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I really like the Cal Poly idea.
And don't come back
as-
with 800,000 a year.
as opposed to
We know it can be
to
done
bringing
cheaper.
in an expensive
Yeah,
consultant.
yeah, that's the idea of having those options is lessening the cost.
Okay, item C, San Juan Bautista Historical Society Annual Open House with Library Auxiliary scheduled for October 12th, 2013.
Yeah, I put this into there. Georgiana and Venda and the Natives of Daughters and the Historical Society are proposing an open house October, and they're gearing up for it. They wanted you to be aware of it. They're going to be doing a lot of improvements around the library and the museum, and they're willing to participate in some of the expenses of it, and I think it's a good cause, and we're going to be meeting with them to see if we can facilitate this opening. And they want to recognize a number of older citizen members of the community and families as a recognition of their participation in the community and involvement. And I think I'll keep you posted on it. If
Well,
any
I'll tell you,
member of the council wants to meet and be actively with it, let me know.
I'll tell you what, you guys, you better sign up, get in on Rogers Barbecue. I see that down here at the bottom.
Yep.
Roger Grimsley to organize a public
The
fundraiser
guy
barbecue
is a master at barbecue.
on the site of the Luck Museum. I've had his barbecue at one of the fire department things, and it was really good.
And my assistant chef, Bob, here is going to be right
Oh,
there.
hey.
Okay, so get the word out and get everybody there for that, okay.
October 12th.
They didn't put a time, did they? Or did they?
They'll probably have some more announcements in specifying their agenda and their program and so on.
You're retired. What do you have going on that day?
Hey, my birthday is in that week, pal. You guys better have a cake for me, I'm telling you. I missed
we'll have a
Roger's
cake.
cake.
Oh, boy.
Sugar-free.
Ooh.
We'll have the fire department standing by to put them out.
Well, the fire department's going to be there to stand by.
We'll get you a fire permit.
All right, enough of this nonsense. Comments from the city council. Jolene?
I don't think I have anything this month. I've had some good discussions with Matt. I'm really glad to have him on board. I think that's going to be good for the city, and hopefully it'll take a little pressure off Roger.
Okay. Andy?
I just want to thank Roger for expediting that building. He's really come a long ways in 3 weeks, so thanks.
I don't normally open my mouth after 9 o'clock because I want to go home, but I've got two things. I'd like to know if there's been any movement on researching the health benefits from another source besides the AWCA.
We can look into that. It's funny that you asked because I asked Christian everything. I says, what's the ACA legislation going to do to make it more affordable for our folks? That's the American, what do they call that? American
Affordable health care.
Affordable Health Care Act. Is what it is.
How that plays into this?
You know, and how that plays into it. And we don't know with Parsex and the other insurers, from Blue Shield and how that's going to affect it. We want to take a hard look on that because the enrollment comes in October.
Yeah, they put it off for a year.
Yeah.
I looked on the League of California Cities website, and I couldn't see where they provide any kind of, and then I went through the budget, and I totaled up the premiums that I could find in there, and divided it out, and it looks like it's around $850 a month per person, including the which sounds to me like it's in the ballpark for this kind of thing. So it could be that paying the membership plus what the insurance premiums are is in the ballpark, but I would just like it to be checked out.
Checked out, yeah. The only state that has come out with the affordable care, I think the terminology they use is the managed plan that they have in the state of Vermont. And it said for a single family, it was about $242 for a single individual. For a husband and wife, it was $282. But then it went up to a family of four, and it was $1,112.
Yeah, and a lot depends on how much coverage you get too.
How much coverage you get, yeah. And then coupled with that is that Affordable Care Act is they have now credits and incentives where if you make less than between 100% and 400% of the poverty rate and everything, you qualify for tax credits. And theoretically, you could make as much as $94,000 and still pay tax.
Oh my gosh. It sounds like the U.S.
really
government.
Convoluted. It's going to be really tough to predict that.
Yeah.
I think the private market is going to trickle through, and then they'll develop some type of plan.
Yeah. Well, initially I thought maybe we were paying way too much, and now I'm not so sure, but I just think it should be checked out. Then the other thing I wanted to bring up is tonight we had the April minutes, and in the April minutes, I think we were looking at the February minutes, so we're now 3 months behind. I wonder if you couldn't authorize some OT or something so that we could get caught up. And, so, I have trouble remembering what I said at last month's meeting 3 months ago.
I have trouble remembering what I said this afternoon.
It's useless for us to look at minutes from 3 months ago. We need to look at last month's, and then we're still going to have trouble remembering. Yeah, I think we should look at last month's minutes this month, and this month's minutes next month. It just, so, I'm done.
I think we're required for
Robert?
that too, aren't we?
Any comments?
Projection on the building is going good. Can't wait till that's finished. All of us in one room. There's one individual that snores a lot. So we're looking forward to that.
And those little sheets between you don't help, huh?
Oh, no.
Are you going to have solid core doors on those bedrooms?
Robert, we want you to bring the fire engine there when he pulls up his campus.
Well, that's right, when I asked if
We'll
you
use
and
a deck
Ed
gun
had
with
slept
that one.
there, you have, haven't you?
Oh, it's
All right.
You've slept
I
there.
have no
I've been there
more,
about
I
5
have no
nights
more
so far.
comments to make or take, so I will.
Move to adjourn.
All in favor?
Aye.
Oh, wait a minute, I
Whoa,
did it
hold
again.
on.
I'm sorry, city manager. Other than comments about my birthday cake. I do that every time. You have any comments, Roger? No. Huh? George? Okay, now, motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Yeah, it's been a long day. We had a veg
Meeting
fire
adjourned.
before this
Thank
morning.
everyone.